think so.
Mr. Penny, just let me know. Okay. All right, the time is now 5:37, and we will call to order the meeting for the Statesboro City Council for June 16th, 2020. We will have our invocation and pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Venus Mack.
Bow your heads. Lord, thank you for this day. I ask that you allow the council to make the best decisions to serve the city of Statesboro. Although everyone will not agree with some of our decisions, help them to understand that we are doing our very best. Lord, bless this world in a special way. We need you more than ever at this time. I ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Leah, do we have any recognition of public presentations?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move down to public comments. Any public comments here?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move down to agenda item 5, which is a consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is an approval of minutes from our June 2nd council minutes and then our June 9th public hearing minutes. Item B is consideration of a motion to approve surplus and disposition of the following items in the Public Utilities Department: the 2002 F-154 pickup, the 2006 F-154 pickup, 1989 case backhoe, one lot of assorted brass water meters and fittings, approximately 5,000 pounds. Is there a motion to approve agenda items 5A and 5B? Is there a second?
Second.
Seeing that there is a second, is there all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those opposed? Let's show that agenda item 5 is passed. We'll move down to agenda item 6, which is the second reading and consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2020-03, an ordinance revising city ordinance 6-8D3 for temporary special events permits. Mr. Penny, if you give us some insight on that, please. Okay?
Mayor and Council, this is a revision of 6.8D3 regarding temporary special event permits. What this would do is would widen the applicant permit so that for events with fewer than 200 total people present, any business holding an occupational tax certificate in a Bullitt County jurisdiction may apply. And for events with 200 or more attendees present, only businesses holding a city-issued catering license may apply. And it caps the number of events at 8 per applicant. It furthermore shortens the lead time on the application date from 45 days prior to the start of the proposed event to 21 days before the proposed event.
Okay. Thank you, Kenny. Any discussion by council?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, Kane. Is the caterers are restricted to only 8 special events as well?
For 8 special events for off-premises sales, as it's written now, that's correct. Caterers still have unlimited number of permits they can get for catered events, which are those where there's not an in-kind or cash transaction done, but it's all paid for up front and then in compliance with state law.
Okay.
So this would only be 8 of the ones where they actually do point-of-sale transactions at an unlicensed location. They would still have an unlimited cap on the number of catered events that they could be permitted to do.
I get you. And catered event just is all-inclusive as opposed to cash bar. That's the distinction.
Not only cash bar, but also solicitation of donations, and if the admission price reflects alcohol, you know, if it's $45 all you can drink sort of event, that would fall under a temporary special event permit, whereas the catered events are those where the host actually prepays for all the alcohol and gives it away to the attendees, free of charge.
Any more discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those opposed?
Nay.
All right, let it show that agenda item 6 is passed on a 4-1 vote. We'll move to agenda item 7, which is a second reading and consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2020-04, or ordinance revising city ordinance 6-7D exemptions in order to provide for pedestrian downtown open container exemption zone. Kane.
Mayor and Council, this would establish an exemption to the city open container law, which does not allow open containers of alcohol in public areas, public streets, and also in semi-public areas such as parking lots. I think it's probably going to be best to review the map that is attached here. And so that sets out, the map sets out what area the downtown open container exemption zone would be. I modeled the ordinance after Savannah's. It does not have a time limitation on it, and it furthermore does not have a requirement that the open containers be purchased from a licensed alcohol business within that district. It just simply states that any sort of wine, beer, or distilled beverages will be only allowed in 20-ounce plastic cups and only 1 cup per person that's over 21. And this would just establish that that full-time open container exemption zone. There would not be any sort of application fees because it would be an area overlay without a time limit on it. So this would just be an area where people could either purchase or bring alcoholic beverages within that area and not be subject to city prosecution for open container. Once again, clarify, state law mandates that within an automobile that you still can't have an open container. But as far as outside of automobiles, that is a home rule up to each jurisdiction decision on that.
All right, thank you, Kane. Any discussion by council?
Mayor, I just want to raise a question, since the city attorney said there's no time limit.
Mm-hmm.
But for business establishment, they do have a time limit.
Mm-hmm.
That they cut off the time that alcohol is sold. And from a policing standpoint, would the council be willing to consider the time limit that other business establishments would discontinue to sell alcohol? That's when the open container would cease for.
But basically, have the time frame reflect that of the business operations hours and that. I have no problem with that, but again, that's up to council, so I'll turn it over to council and we'll hear from them.
I think it should be like, just like a restaurant. If last call is at midnight and you have to be out by 12:30, then whenever they quit serving downtown, if it's 11 o'clock, then you got 30 minutes to finish it up.
I concur with Mr. Riggs.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion by council?
So how did you want to set it? Do you want to just set it to the hours that are already currently allowed, or?
Yeah, just have it run concurrent with the current
The
hours.
hours of operation that are currently set out in chapter 6.
Well, not every restaurant though closes at the same time necessarily.
Right, that's what I meant, so like.
Yeah, so,
But the
I mean, one could close at 9, one could close at 10, one can close at 11.
Yeah,
What's
but the law sets the time limit that the alcohol cannot be sold beyond.
Yeah, that's what
What is the
I'm
time
suggesting, just following the existing ordinance, the timeframes in the ordinance.
Yeah,
What is the time
What's
frame?
that?
It's,
1
there's
o'clock.
a different time for when sales cease and when the business has to be cleared of all patrons. So I think that's an important distinction. Do we want the district to be in effect when they're able to sell, or when the patrons must be cleared out?
council?
Didn't we say a minute ago that when we passed this, then if I was sitting in the park, I could sit in the park and drink a glass of wine? I mean, it's not just about selling it, it's about being able to have it as long as I'm not in a vehicle.
That's correct, but a glass of wine would not be allowed unless it was a plastic glass.
Right.
But otherwise, you are absolutely correct. It does not make a distinction between beverages that someone would bring in or beverages that are sold from licensed businesses within the district.
So in other words, Mr. Penny, you don't want somebody at 3 in the morning, if we don't have a time limit, bringing in a cooler of beer and sitting down there at the dog park and whooping it up.
That's the policing issue.
Right.
Yeah,
Sure it is.
I believe a half an hour after the time is allowed to be sold.
And I believe that's the time that's allowed for clearing the premises as well, and I think that would be consistent, and I don't see that as a substantial revision, since that is the hours of sales that are allowed.
Okay.
And I would need to get back with y'all and let y'all know what the hours of operation are, or I can just do a quick search while we're in here in reference to code section. But it could be passed with it would be in effect for the hours of operation that are allowed when patrons are allowed.
Just with that amended statement?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, that would mean then, if you're at a restaurant downtown, you could, at 1:30, you could walk out with your beer, or you would not be able to do that anymore?
I think at 1:30 it would be,
1:45, I think it is. It's 45 minutes, isn't it? Yeah.
so 1:45 that would be the Cinderella hour, and it would become illegal based on what we're discussing currently.
Okay. Any further discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's none.
I mean, that's pretty late for some, we're trying to have residents downtown and encourage it. That's pretty late. But,
The night is just getting started at 1:45.
yeah, you're in the Save-A-Lot parking lot, that's for sure.
Yep.
Jeez. That's a conversation for another time.
Yeah. Is there a motion with Kane's amendment?
That it would be in effect, the exemption would be in effect until that time that all patrons must be cleared from licensed establishments.
And that's 12 o'clock.
And
Oh, that's 1:45.
1:45.
except on Sunday nights.
Okay, so council, I need a motion with this amendment.
I'm thinking.
Was this a substantial revision, Kane?
No.
Not really, since
We're
it's
just-
in line with our current hours of operation. I don't see it as falling, we need to revert back to first reading.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
So what? What did you move?
To Kane's, a slight amendment.
1:45.
1:45 time.
Operation?
It complies with the state hours.
Yeah.
Complies with the 8 hours.
With your motion to accept,
Yeah.
your motion to
To
vote
accept.
yes with his recommendation.
That's
Yeah.
local hours.
Yes.
All right.
Local hours for
What do I
clearing
need
of
to
patrons,
verbalize
not
that more
sales,
clearly?
correct?
No,
If I would, I'd suggest the sales, that ends walking around downtown at 1 o'clock with alcohol and keep, 1 o'clock is pretty late. Again, we're trying to encourage more residents downtown, and so, 1 o'clock is pretty late. I don't think you want people running through your neighborhood with beer at 1:45 in the morning, do you?
I think Venus is the
Well,
one running
1
around.
o'clock is
Well,
not
Venus
that
is
late.
apparently-
And I mean, just to
Apparently
be,
Venus is just getting started then.
if the state allows that,
No,
to
it's
me,
not the state, it's us.
well, at 1 o'clock, if and this is just an example, guys,
Don't judge him.
please don't judge me or worry about me
We're
in
getting ready
paper
to judge
tomorrow.
right now.
But if at 1 o'clock I can purchase an alcoholic beverage, I don't want to not be able to walk outside and drink it at 1:05.
Oh,
Cause
no,
if the
you-
bar stops at 1, I don't need to be at the bar anymore.
So that's what we're saying. You can buy that, alcohol at $12.59, walk outside, and you got 45 minutes to drink that beer.
I'm good with that.
But he's saying. cut
But
off
he's
the-
saying that's too late.
Oh,
It's pretty late.
Yeah, he's saying it's too
To
late.
be running, it's one thing to stay in the bar till 1:45, when we're running around downtown at 1:45. I'm just saying,
Okay.
you're gonna get calls from Dwayne, I'm just telling you.
Okay. Well, we do
I
have.
know how it's going down.
Okay, we do have a motion that's on the floor. Is it a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
aye,
Hold on. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
That's 3. All right, all those opposed?
Nay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, 3-2. All right, let's show that agenda item, number 7 is passed, with a 3-2 vote. All right, we move down to agenda item number 8, second reading and consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2020-05, ordinance revising restriction found in city ordinance 6-7I. Okay,
Mayor and Council, this is a revision of 6.7I, which currently reads, interest of public employees and officials prohibited. No license shall be granted to any city, state, or federal employee or official whose duties include the regulation or policing of alcoholic beverages or licensing or any tax collecting activities. The proposed ordinance that is before you all for second reading and consideration would remove the prohibition on public officials, but would maintain the prohibition on city, state, and federal employees whose duties include the regulation or policing of alcoholic beverages or licenses or any tax collecting activities.
All right, any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and all those opposed?
Nay.
All right, 3-2 on item 8. We move down to agenda item 9. If it pleases the council, I would like to consolidate 9, 10, and 11, and do them all in a open, in a public hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearings?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Owen, if you will, we got Owen down here.
No, you
No,
don't,
it's
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Arts.
it's who?
Mayor, it's the outside agency.
Right.
Okay, all right, I see Owen down here for some reason, so I thought I was missing something. All right,
Mayor, I apologize.
All right, so we have the Able Center for Arts for number 9. Where's Ron? Ron, come on in, Ron.
Yes, sir.
Y'all create a path for Ron.
Come on.
You doing good today?
Yes, sir, I'm doing fine, but yourself, Council.
Good. All right. All right. Ron, give us an update on the Able Center.
The Avery Center is doing as well as can be expected right now. We're in our third week of camps. We've been very restricted as to what we can do as far as summer camps, and we're trying to follow all the governor's guidelines that he came out with his executive order. We've done pretty well. We're hanging on. We are working on putting together arts and crafts for the upcoming season, our classes, putting together a season for next year. Fortunately, everything's still way up in the air, so we really don't know what's gonna make, what's gonna cancel. Actually, we just had somebody cancel today. Yes, Michael Whitaker called and said that an evening for Love Song for Miss Lydia, he wanted to postpone that because they didn't feel like they could pull that off in late August. So we were kind of put on the back burner on that one, so it kind of caught me by surprise. But we're just rolling with punches and see what we can do and provide entertainment downtown and start bringing people downtown a little bit more.
Thank you, Ron.
Yes, sir.
And so, and then I do the four requests, against requests for each one of these individually. Is there anyone here to speak against? All right, seeing that it is not, we'll move on to council discussion. Any council discussion?
You want to do them on each of the agencies?
Yeah, we're gonna do the council discussion after each one, and then we'll do, motion for a vote. I'm hoping that, we don't have any issue with DSDA, the Able Center for the Arts, and the CBB.
No.
Okay. But if there's anything that we need to pull out, we'll do so. Any discussion from council?
So Ron, we appreciate y'all hanging in and doing what you can.
Yeah.
Well, yes,
And
ma'am.
keeping people safe. I mean, it's hard to balance that.
Thank you, ma'am. Something that we've actually begun the past couple of weeks, we realized that not a lot of people are actually venturing out, so we are actually starting to make our own videos
Oh, cool. Oh, wow.
and put them on Facebook and different things like that. So to show our camps, to show what we've got downtown. So we've got a lot of plans on that.
Cool.
And we show your dance moves.
And my dance moves. And my TikTok. Yes, sir.
Ron can cut a rug now.
I'm doing the virtual the virtual gallery where folks don't want to go downtown and look, but you got some of those online too?
Yes, ma'am, we sure do on our website, we sure do.
But between the reduction in the income from hotels and the reduction in people taking things, I'm sure there's a lot of questions with the budget and being able to keep people on.
Yes, ma'am. Fortunately, we were able to get the PPP program to help. We've also tried to reach out and get some more budget and grant monies from different organizations like the Georgia Council for the Arts. And I'm working on a grant right now from the South Arts. So, you know, we've been fortunate that we haven't had to lay off anybody or furlough anybody. Do not want to do that, but we want to keep providing content for City of Statesboro and beyond. Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all.
We appreciate you.
Thank y'all very much.
All right, Alan, come on down.
You're the next contestant.
Hey, Alan.
Council. We appreciate it. We excited about what we do. We feel like we're the development arm for the city, so we work very hard for you guys to go out and be proud of the things that we're doing. During this pandemic thing, we've worked hard in a lot of promotional online Facebook things, trying to generate that traffic to come back, and we're doing prizes and stuff. I believe we've got a winner up there. So, I mean, it's tough, but you do it. And we like doing it. So that part of the retail we've done, we've had a very active facade grant this year. We've given out almost $15,000, which really leverages about $30,000 or $40,000. So those are things that last. We like things that last a long time.
That's good.
And we're doing finishing up a couple of our neighborhood revitalization. We've got 2 lots, a house, and a lot over there. We're going to move on out, clean them up, and of course we're pretty excited. Hopefully we'll get some good news next door.
Yeah.
And that partnership between us and the city and Georgia Southern should be something very exciting. So we look forward to that. One other thing, we're doing a promotion right now that if you spend $20 downtown, you put it in a raffle for a 52-inch griddle grill. So right now the odds are really good if you put something in there. We only have a handful and it ends Friday, so somebody win a griddle.
Put something on there.
You spend a little money to get you. If
You said a griddle, it's a grill.
It's a griddle.
It's a griddle? Oh, I thought it was, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Sorry, it looked different in the picture. See, don't believe the pictures.
Yeah, it's still good.
It's like Amazon.
But you can go eat and still get your ticket. We would encourage you to do that. Other than that, we're staying very busy. We came to work every morning and work till every evening through the whole time. So, and we like that.
Any discussion by council?
Thank you for all the hard work y'all do.
Definitely.
I appreciate your support.
Bend over backwards for downtown.
Thank you.
Ellen, I assume we're following state guidelines, and that's why we can't do First Fridays again yet?
Yeah, I'm gonna send out a little thing to the mayor and the city manager about maybe we're shooting for August. School starts back, we have our pep rally downtown, so I wanna kind of run what we're thinking by you guys, make sure you feel comfortable. If you don't, we can back out of it. But as a general rule, Main Street programs in the state are kicking off in September because ours, since the school has already started, they already have football practice. We thought maybe August we could kind of squeak on out there. And that's part of what we do with the natural gas depots. We give away free chili dogs. It's a fun event. It's a good community event. So we're shooting for August, but we'll certainly look for feedback and make sure everybody feels comfortable with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alan. And is Becky and Justin, you guys here? Okay. Get excited when you see Becky, right?
Yeah.
She'll be so fun. All right. Go ahead.
So we are not open to the public yet. We've been in the office daily. We're following the state's guidelines for visitor centers. They're not really encouraging travel, and early on when the shutdown started, they asked us to stop promoting Statesboro, all of the ARVICs to stop promoting their cities as destinations and more or less just become a source of information. So that's what we've been doing.
Okay.
We're also working, of course, so closely with the farmers market. The farmers market to go moved back to our office last week.
Okay.
They've been at Uncle Shug's for several weeks due to just the demand of space. We're working right now to create a walk-in cooler freezer space, so that, right now we've got like a rented one, just delivered about 30 minutes ago, actually, to our space. So I don't know if any of you all are using Market to Go, but it's fabulous. We've gone from about $1,100 a week in sales to about $18,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so, right now, I think last week was right at 13, so it kind of fluctuates a little bit, but, the demand, and Sherry knows just what an asset that's been to the community.
Yeah.
And-
That's
and-
amazing.
And Becky, didn't you partnered with somebody to offer delivery services as well? Is
We
that
do,
correct?
there's just a small fee for delivery, but, it's
Is
a
that through,
drive-through
is that
pickup.
through you guys, or do you guys deliver, or do you?
We don't personally deliver, it's just a small fee on the Market to Go website, and it's, borough takeout.
Oh.
They're doing it. And we're actually moving forward with our warehouse project. Yep, and I know you're excited about that. We got, our contractor, we met with him last week, and Rick can give you an update on that.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the staff. They have been taking a lot of time to really reorganize and work on the space. They're way ahead in there, so I appreciate the staff doing that during this time. Now they've been working hard. But yes, we're really pleased with the project and the project with the warehouse in the back. Let me just briefly update you on where I've been meeting with the contractors and others. We're looking at now, knowing that things are going to slow down with the funds coming in for that. We're now working with them to phase this in. It's going to take a little longer, but we're still moving ahead and working to phase it so that we're doing work that has to be done, basic work and other things to get it to a basic level of use. And then what are those things that we can do in phase 2 that'll bring it up to the level that we originally planned with, but still moving fast so that we can get it into operation as soon as possible. Doing a little bit of site prep. It's completely cleaned out now, and the initial demolition's completed on the building. You can get a good sense from the inside now exactly how nice a facility this is going to be, along with the landscaping and the rest on the side that'll help connect the site to the McTell Trail, allow our visitors to eventually get back and forth on there and be a really great multi-purpose space. So appreciate the contractor still working with us and moving along on that and helping us phase this so that we are still moving along and not stopping at all on that project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.
All right, and so what we're gonna do is close the public hearing, and then we open it back up for council discussion for any further points. Is there a motion to close the public hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any further council discussion in regards to the Avery Center for Arts, the Downtown Statesboro Development Authority, as well as the Statesboro Convention and Visitors Bureau by council?
The only comment I have, Mayor, is that I've never seen these three, in all my years, 13 years of doing this, I've never seen these three organizations work better together.
Okay, that's a great point. All right, Mr. Penny, if you will you give us some insight as far as budget issue?
Mayor, members of the council, I think it is good for the public to hear these three entities used hotel motel tax, and because of COVID, their revenues have been severely impacted. During the course of the year for 2020, we had budgeted for the Convention and Visitors Bureau originally $375,000. So for next year, we're estimating that they will receive $300,000. For the DSDA, Convention and Visitors Bureau receives 50% of the funds. DSDA receives about 19% of the funds. This year, they were estimated to receive $179,100. Next year, they will receive $119,000. And hopefully, hotel stays will pick up. And for the Avery Center, this year, they will estimate to receive $225,000. That number has been adjusted downward to $175,000. And next year, we estimate that they will receive, they receive about 25%. They will receive $150,600.
Okay. And I don't think it's lost on anyone the effect that COVID-19 has had on our local economy. And so with that being said, if you have to spend, please try to spend as much as you can locally. And support these three entities because they do so much for our community and working to bring those dollars to support our, our SPLOST, programs. That's paving roads, that's supported by people that's outside of our community. And those people are coming because of the work that these individuals here are doing locally. But with that being said, if you can spend local, please do. We gotta support our local businesses, and we gotta support our local nonprofits as well as the CVB, as the Aver Center, and the DSDA. And definitely know that the work that you guys are doing, we greatly appreciate it. And to kind of piggyback on what Councilman Boyum said, these are some fine people that's working really, really hard. They have a lot of love for our community. And there's some of those unsung heroes that does a lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you guys so much. With that being said, is there any further discussion by council before we go to the vote? Okay, all right. Is there a motion to approve line items 9, 10, and 11?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. We'll move over to line item 12, which is a public hearing, consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2020-17, a resolution exempting certain vehicles from marking requirements for 1 year. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Penn, can you give us direction?
I'm gonna ask Mr. Smith if he
Okay.
can explain it better.
Okay.
Pursuant to Georgia law, if public funds are used to lease or purchase a vehicle, there has to be a yearly resolution exempting them from having the marking requirements. What this resolution would do is waive those marking requirements for those positions that receive automobile allowances, so that they would not have, so that Mr. Penny doesn't have to have a city manager on the side of his car. As much as he might like that.
Good. All right, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for the request? Anyone here to speak against? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the discussion, to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll open it up for council discussion.
For
Seeing
the
that,
record, it's not just Mr. Penny's, there's several vehicles covered.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Is there any further discussion by council? Seeing that there's no further discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll move down to agenda item 13, which is a public hearing, consideration of a motion to approve application RZ 20-05-01. Landrum Hodges requests a zoning map amendment, 2.24 acres of property located at 814 South of Main Street from R4 high-density residential to commercial retail zoning district in order to utilize the property for commercial land use. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This, as you mentioned, is RZ 20-05-01, which is located at 814 South Main Street. The applicant, Landrum Hodges, is requesting a zoning map amendment from R4 high-density residential to the CR commercial retail zoning district in order to allow for a commercial land use. You can see the parcel on the screen. And this is to allow, for a commercial land use, which is not an allowable use by right under the subject property's current R4 high-density residential zoning district regulations. The applicant's desired utilization of the property is not permitted without the rezoning of the property. Historically, the subject property has been utilized for commercial uses. The requested commercial retail use is deemed appropriate and compatible with the surrounding land uses, while contributing a commercial retail land use consistent with the goals of the city's comprehensive plan. For these reasons, staff recommends approval of this zoning map amendment request with conditions. At the June 2nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment requested under this application with the following staff conditions. 1, approval of this zoning map amendment does not grant site and/or building plan approval as submitted, and that projects will be submitted to meet all city ordinances and applicable building codes. And if you look at the screen, I can show you pictures of surrounding land uses to the applicant's parcel. And that is it. And I believe a representative of the applicant is here tonight as well to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. All right. Is there anyone here to speak for?
Good evening. I'm Mark Bruce, for those who don't know me.
Mr. Bruce?
I'm here with Landon Hodges, the owner, and as you were just told, historically, this property has been zoned commercial retail, in fact, for over 30 years now. 2 years ago, we had an interested buyer for the property, and one of the conditions that he asked for was that he be allowed to seek rezoning to multifamily. And he pursued that, and the council granted it. He ultimately could not make the project fly, and he voided the contract. So we're asking that we revert back to where we've been all these years in the past. And I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you might have, and I'm sure Mr. Hodges is as well. But ultimately, what we ask you to do is to accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Committee and the staff to allow the CR zoning.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone here to speak against? Seeing that it's none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any discussion by council?
I have a question. Is Mr. Hodges or Mr. Bruce able to tell us if there are any plans that they can share at this point of what will happen on the property when it's rezoned?
Not at present.
Not at present.
It's been vacant now for approximately 5 years. It's been used for commercial purposes since the 70s, with one small window where Georgia Southern used it as a tenant to make costumes for their drama program. But other than that, it's been a commercial business, and we're hoping that we'll get a price for it now that if it's rezoned. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion by council?
So just to be clear, the potential buyer wants it rezoned, but doesn't know the purpose of the rezoning?
I'm sorry.
They don't know what
They
they're
don't know
doing.
what
She said
they
they don't know what they're
want.
doing.
They don't have a
They just want to revert it back.
No, they're trying to make it attractive to buyers.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe it's more attractive
Okay.
being commercial than it is for.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, any further discussion by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 14, which is the public hearing, consideration of motion to approve 14A, which is the application 520-05-02, West District Development LLC requests a variance from Article 14, Section 1402 to reduce the minimum lot size requirements for property to be considered for the PUD or planned unit development zoning district in order to construct a mixed-use development on 5.362 for a combination of parcels addressed South College Street, West Cherry Street, and 40 West Cherry Street, as well as 14B application RZ 20-05-03 West District Development LLC requested zoning map amendment of 5.362 acres per lot located along South College Street from CBD, which is Central Business District, to PUD, planned unit development zoning district in order to construct a mixed-use development for a combination of parcels addressed South College Street, West Cherry Street, and 40 West Cherry Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, if you will.
Okay, I've put up the proposed site for your review. The applicant and landowner West District Development LLC are in the process of creating a mixed-use development with office, retail, commercial, light industrial, and residential loft uses. After discussion with the applicants, we really recommended to them that they seek a PUD zoning designation because of the mix of uses, and that it would be a much more appropriate way for them to develop the site. But in order to pursue a PUD, the requirements of a PUD are that you must have a minimum of 10 acres. So therefore, there's a request tonight before you to, for a variance request to reduce that 10 minimum acres down to 5 point, I have it in here somewhere, let me just, it's, I'm sorry, it's 5.362 acres. So that's the variance request. And then the idea is with the variance granted that they would then ask that the area be zoned to the PUD. So that is what we're reviewing tonight, okay? So we recommend approval of this requested zoning variance and the zoning map amendment with the conditions. You should also know that on June 2nd, 2020, the Planning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the zoning variance and the zoning map amendment requested under B 200502 and RZ 200503 with the following staff conditions. 1, staff approval of the previously approved CDD site plan dated July 16th, 2019, which came before the council and was approved, which is Exhibit D, CDD approved site plan, and the corresponding development package included within the staff report under Exhibit F, West District PUD rezoning development plan, which I believe is that. So, as applicable, the bylaws, restricted covenants, and property owners association's legal instruments shall be updated and recorded prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for any new building and/or structure within the development. 3, approval of this zoning map amendment is based on the development's approved CBD site plan under Exhibit D. Each parcel shall be required to submit building and/or site plans for review and approval. Projects will be required to meet all city ordinances and applicable building codes. 4, subdivision design and development of the property shall be in conformance with the requirements of the Statesboro subdivision regulations and all other development standards of the city. 5, signage for this PUD zoning district and parcel 10 shall be limited to that of sign district 3 regulations with the following exceptions. If any future signage variants are required for the West District development, then the signage request shall proceed by the administrative variance process under Article 29 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance. And then B, all signage included within Exhibit F, West District PUD rezoning development plans shall be approved under this PUD zoning district upon the review and approval of sign permit applications. So what that is also, let me get back here, that building in pink up at the top left is parcel 10, and that is still a light industrially zoned building. The other area in the blue is the proposed PUD. What we're asking here is that the signage requirements that are utilized under District 3, which will be included within the PUD, also be utilized for that building, because we ascertain in the future that there will be additional sign variances coming along. So rather than bringing them through this city council process, we're asking that they be administratively dealt with. So that sign condition essentially deals with that. Then number 6, the development site shall be required to meet all regulations of Chapter 86, Article 2 of the Statesboro City Code, Urban Forest Beautification and Conservation. No request for a variance shall be permitted by the tree board for this zoning condition. 7, prior to the issuance of any building permits within the West District development, the Director of Public Works and Engineering shall review and approve a sanitation plan which shall adequately serve all of the West District development per uses per city standards. 8, this PUD zoning district shall be limited to the land uses allowed under Article 8, Section 801 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance. Restaurants and loft-style residential uses are preferred. 9, this PUD zoning district approval is conditioned on the proposed development providing the yard section of the West District development and/or similar community amenity as approved by the zoning administrator. And the yard, of course, is the public green space. That is the end of the conditions.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for the request? Is there anyone here to speak against the request? All right. If we will, council, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Council, any discussion?
Yes, well, go ahead.
I was saying this next.
Oh, would you clarify number H for me? Or letter H, I guess that would be. The one about the lifestyle apartments, what, could you explain that a little further?
That's number 8. This PUD zoning district shall be limited to the land uses allowed under Article 8. But we prefer that to see restaurants and loft-style residential uses. And we have some ideas of what those could be. But we felt that those were preferred uses, not mandatory, but we would welcome those types of uses there.
Okay, and is that in any part of that property, or does it just apply to a portion of the property?
Well, it is a mixed-use development,
Right.
so it could be
Well,
anywhere.
there's existing stuff, and then they got the warehouse, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Is the restaurant and the loft stuff, is that applying to the warehouse section? The new section that they're adding?
Well, it could, yeah, it could, yes, certainly.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion by council?
If you don't mind, Kathy, clarify for me, you were saying number 6, but in my paperwork it's number F, where it talks about no request for variance with the tree board. That's basically you're recommending a condition that they have to comply with keeping our canopy good and not even
Yes.
ask about
That is
taking down
correct.
trees?
Yes, we will not, we want to say that up front, so that there will be no variance request from that ordinance.
Okay. So they have to keep trees there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any further discussions by council? All right, seeing that there's no further discussion by council, is there a motion to approve 14A and B?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move down to agenda item 15, which is a public hearing and consideration of a motion to approve application RZ 20-05-04. SD SARS Construction Company, LLC, requests a zoning map amendment of approximately 1.3 acres of property located at 723 and 723.5 South Main Street from a split zoning of R4 high-density residential to a planned unit development and highly-oriented commercial to the commercial retail zoning district in order to utilize the property for mixed-use residential and commercial retail development. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. The applicant, SD Sowers Construction Company, is requesting a zoning map amendment of 2 parcels, which have a split zoning of PUD, planned unit development, R4, high-density residential, and HOC, highway-oriented commercial. The applicant is proposing to rezone both parcels to the CR, commercial retail zoning district, in order to allow for a mixed land use of residential lofts over commercial retail, which is not an allowed use under the subject site's current zoning designations. Historically, the property has been utilized for single-family residential and recreational uses. This request gives the applicant an opportunity to serve members of the community while contributing a commercial retail land use as encouraged by the city's comprehensive plan. For these reasons, staff recommends approval of the zoning map amendment with conditions. At the June 2nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the commission voted 6-0 to approve the zoning map amendment requested under RZ 20-05-04 with the following staff conditions. 1, approval of this zoning map amendment is based on the conceptual site plan submitted under Exhibit D of the staff report. Prior to construction commencement, city staff will require review and approval of the civil engineering and/or building plans. Projects will be required to meet all city ordinances and applicable building codes. And 2, prior to construction commencement, a combination plat of the 2 parcels shall be required to be submitted to city staff for review and approval. And I can show you some surrounding land uses. Well, actually, that is the parcel with the uses on it. And those are the surrounding uses. And there is a proposed site plan showing the 2 portions of the site that are proposed for rezoning.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone here to speak for the request?
Right here.
I'm Grace Stewart with Caldwell Banker Connor Realty. We just had a name change. For those that didn't know, Mr. Sowers could not be here. He had something going on with 2 children and he could not make it back from Savannah. However, this is, will beautify that part coming in to Statesboro on the Blue Mile. It will also increase the tax dollar revenue on it. And he owns the property next door with the shopping center with Talbots and all. But he's gonna do the commercial and then, high-end lofts above it. It's gonna be very nice. So if there are any questions that I can answer, I may not can answer, I will show. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, we'll do that during council discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone here to speak against the request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, council, is there any discussion?
So something is gonna, transpire in that Talbot's building that's now vacant?
No, this is gonna be on the property next door to that, the 1.3 acres that's there.
So this is the same gentleman that owns the Talbot's building? Okay.
And he's gonna do commercial with residential upscale lofts above it.
Okay.
Now, whether he'll utilize that building and the parking over there, he might join it and add to it, but I don't know for sure.
Gotcha.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's no further discussion by council, is it a motion to approve, agenda item 15, staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's show that agenda item 15 has passed. We move down to agenda item 16, which is the public hearing and consideration of a motion to approve 16A, application 520-05-05, Drayton Parker Companies LLC requests a variance from Article 11, Section 1102 to reduce the required front yard setback in order to allow for the new construction of an automotive gasoline station on 1.41 acres of property for a combination of parcels addressed 205 North Main Street and 2331 North Side Drive West. It's also a public hearing for 16B, application 520-0506, Drayton Parker Companies LLC requests a variance from Article 11, Section 1102D to reduce the required rear yard setback in order to allow for the new construction of an automotive gasoline station on 1.41 acres of property for a combination of parcels addressed 205 North Main Street and 2331 Northside Drive West. 16C, application 520-05-07, Drayton Parker Companies LLC requests a variance from Article 11, Section 1104F regarding the location of all permanent points of vehicular access to and from public streets within close proximity to intersections in order to allow for new construction of an automotive gasoline station on 1.41 acres of property for a combination of parcels addressed 205 North Main Street, 2331 Northside Drive West. 16D, application 20-05-08, Drayton Parker Companies LLC requests a variance from Article 1601 regarding the minimum parking space size requirements in order to allow for the new construction of an automotive gasoline station on 1.41 acres of property for a combination of parcels addressed 205 North Main Street and 2331 Northside Drive West. And 16E, application 520-05-09, Drayton Parker Companies LLC requests a variance from Articles 3014B regarding the maximum number of parking spaces allowed in front of a building within the downtown district in order to allow for the new construction of an automated gasoline station on 1.41 acres of property for a combination of parcels addressed 205 North Main Street and 2331 Northside Drive West. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. The applicant and property owner, Drayton Parker Companies LLC, is requesting 5 zoning variances from Article 11, Highway-Oriented Commercial HOC District Regulations, from Article 16, Off-Street Parking Regulations, and Article 30, Downtown District Design Standards. The applicant is proposing the demolition of an existing commercial building and the new construction of 4,920 square feet for Parker's Kitchen and Gas Station with associated site improvements. This project will be regulated by the Downtown Design Standards District, which is Article 30 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance, and it is zoned HOC highway-oriented commercial, under which the proposed automotive services and convenience store uses are permitted. Historically, the property has been used as a gas station and a religious facility. It should be noted that the proposed automotive services use is already similar to other uses located at this intersection, which is an urban corridor gateway into Statesboro's downtown district. Therefore, each variance should be given careful consideration. Lastly, development in the downtown district should occur in line with the Statesboro Downtown Master Plan. In staff's opinion, the proposed land use is not consistent with the city's 2019-2029 comprehensive master plan. For these reasons, the DSDA and staff recommend approval of the variances requested by application B200505, which is the front yard setback reduction from 60 feet to 35 feet, and B200506, rear yard setback reduction from 20 feet to 8 feet, with conditions. At the June 2nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the commission voted 6-0 to approve the zoning variances requested under B200505 and B200506 with the following staff considerations. 1, approval of these zoning variances is based upon the conceptual site plan under Exhibit D of the staff report. Prior to construction commencement, this development site will be required to submit civil engineering and architectural plans for city's review and approval. Project will be required to meet all city ordinances and applicable building codes. 2, development shall adhere to the design standards of the downtown district, specifically the regulation of Article 30 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance. 3, developer shall be required to coordinate with the Downtown Statesboro Development Authority on the placement of the downtown district gateway signage and associated easement. And 4, developer shall be required to establish a landscape buffer strip at least 5 feet wide along the rear boundary of the development site. The strip shall be a mixed combination of the existing fencing and landscape plantings. A landscape plan identifying this buffer strip shall be required prior to construction commencement. So I will show you, this is the intersection. And these are surrounding land uses. There's an end mark across the street and a bank next door. More. And here is the site plan that we've outlined in red, showing the front and rear setbacks. The top configuration is the front setback request, and then the bottom one is the rear setback request. Staff recommends approval of the zoning variance requested by application B0507, which is to increase the vehicular access way width from 25 feet to 40 feet with conditions. At the June 2nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 6-0 to approve the zoning variance requested under B0507 with the following staff conditions. Approval of this variance does not grant civil engineering or architectural plan approval as submitted. Approval is only based on the conceptual site plan submitted under Exhibit D. 2, development shall adhere to all other design standards for the downtown district, specifically the regulations of Article 30 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance. And 3, prior to construction commencement, the developer shall be required to secure permits from the Georgia Department of Transportation for all ingress and egress points to the development site. Staff recommends denial of the variance requested. This one dealt with the vehicular access, and there is a request for vehicular access on North Side Drive at the very top, and then also on North Main Street. So, can you point to those with your
Yes.
arrow?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. One there, and then one over there. And they're both state roads, so GDOT will have a say in terms of how wide those should be. Staff recommends denial of the variance requested by application V 200508, which is a request for minimum parking space size reduction from 9.5 times 18.8 to 9 times 18. At the June 2nd Planning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 6-0 to approve the zoning variance requested under V 200508 with the following conditions. That the developer shall be required to have all off-street parking spaces meet all minimum size requirements as required under Article 16 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance. An approval of the zoning variance is based on the revised P3 conceptual plan under Exhibit D of the staff report. The applicant did request that the parking space sizes be reduced. However, at the Planning Commission meeting, they did acquiesce to our standards. So therefore, the Planning Commission approved that variance because of the fact that they agreed to do it. So, and let me show you so here's the site plan here. You can see. And I think I have is there a larger one in there that you can pull up?
Outside the slideshow.
Pardon me?
I think it's outside the slideshow.
Oh, it's outside the slideshow, okay.
Can you go to that?
Sure, yes. Here we are. Okay, so that is the site plan that was reviewed at the Planning Commission meeting. Moving on. Staff recommends denial of the variance requested by application B 200508, which is the request for minimum parking space size reductions from 9.5 times 18.8 to 9 times 18.8. And as I mentioned, the Planning Commission did approve that one. Then staff subsequently recommend denial of the variance requested by application B 200509, which is the request for an increase in the total percentage of off-street parking spaces allowed in the front of the building from 25% to 45% in the downtown district. At the June 2nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 5-1 to approve the zoning variance requested under B 200509 with the following conditions: that should this variance request be approved, that it should be based on this revised P3 site plan. So in essence, the Planning Commission approved the size of the parking spaces because the applicant agreed to that. And then lastly, they approved the variance requests to minimize the to maximize the required amount of spaces in the front, which the staff denied because it did not meet the downtown design guidelines. That's my presentation.
I'm down here reading through this.
Yeah, I know, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
I do apologize.
All right.
There are a lot of variances.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for?
Yes.
Okay.
Staff. Good evening, my name is Thomas Matthews. I'm a real estate project manager with Parker Smith. Approached to hand out some pamphlets that show the architecture and the project. Thank you. Appreciate it. So as y'all are looking at that, I just want to again say thank y'all for hearing this application. As staff mentioned, we did get approval for these variances from the Planning Commission on June 2nd. So, and in that packet to describe what you're looking at, these are the architectural renderings for the proposed store. Got on the last page there is the floor plan.
I think I also have some here.
Thank you, yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Kathy. We did specifically, I believe these were images from the ones you're seeing now are specific to this site, so it draws in.
That's the one, yeah, she put them there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, appreciate it.
Okay. So, there you go.
Thank you very much. We'll get too many of these pictures, but again, this on June 2nd, we did get approval from the Planning Commission, which we're grateful for. I believe y'all are probably pretty familiar with Parker's. We've got 5 stores here in Statesboro, and it's our goal to continue to be part of the community here in Statesboro, serve the community, to grow with Statesboro as it grows. Parker's take pride not only in the services we provide to the community, but also in our architecture and our site, and the way we design our sites. I've got our civil engineer here who can answer some more questions if there are specific questions about the site design, but I just wanted to really speak to the building, architecture, and the site design. As I was walking around before the meeting in downtown, I was noticing a lot of the same details in this building you see around downtown Statesboro. And so that's something we wanted to do as we design this. It is a vital site as you enter into downtown Statesboro and the Blue Mile and being in part of that downtown development district. So we want to honor that, design something that not only we're proud of, but that the community is proud of. And so we think that, or we truly believe that by designing the site as we have it in the P3 plan that we're asking for approval on, that creates the best operating store, functioning store to serve the community the best, not just one that we're placing on the site just to make it work. So we'd ask that you'd approve it tonight. I'm going to step aside and allow our engineer to speak if you have any questions. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is David Buckle with Buckle Design Group. We're the civil engineers. So as Thomas said, I'll just run through a few things of why we site planned the way we did and just talk about that briefly. So Park has been looking at this site for about a year. Challenging site, has some environmental issues. We've done some environmental testing, and part of the placement of the building is to get off of some high vapor counts where the building sits today. Well, I don't know why I get nervous up here, but all right, so we did that. The project will go through the brownfield program. We have talked to DOT. They conceptually have approved the access points as we have shown them. We are going to put the gateway sign at the intersection for the request of the Downtown Development Authority. A couple of things like they had mentioned. So we had submitted a concept plan, P2, got staff's comments back, and we submitted the P3 plan. So that did, a couple of things that did there. We increased the green space along north side West Drive from 7 feet up to 10 to 16 feet. We had a foundation plan in around the buildings. We added landscape islands every 10 spaces. We went ahead and complied with the parking width of 9.5, so we wanted to remove that variance, but we couldn't. We increased the green space from 20.86% to 22.1%. We're only required to do 15%. And I think the big one is the parking in the front. I think they agreed to everyone, and Planning Commission approved, and just the way they count the parking to 25%, we need that to be 45% to have the 12 parking spaces up front. So, to answer any other questions that y'all have.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak against the request?
I just got to come up just who you are.
Okay. Edwin Presley, Statesboro, Georgia. Now, thinking about this, did I miss something? I just want to make sure that, did they buy the church beside it? Because, you know, there's a little church beside that property.
Yeah, but that's in the.
That was something I missed, so that has to be rezoned, right? Or has it already been rezoned for beer and liquor? I'm just just something maybe I didn't hear properly. I just wanted just to, because,
And- and-
in the
and-
past, we tried to buy this property in the past, but we couldn't do it because of the zoning.
Okay, and so, and if I wanna ask the question, I wanna answer it, I wanna re-ask the question, what you wanna know is, will this facility be able to sell alcohol located next to a church?
That's correct.
Okay, staff?
Well, the church will be.
They bought the church.
They're part of the church.
Okay, so
It is
so
part of the
has it
parking
been,
lot.
has it been rezoned yet? That property?
I think we're about to vote on that.
Okay.
But the thing is, I think I realize what you're saying, that you wanted to buy the property, but not the church.
That's correct.
And you couldn't serve alcohol there because it was next to the church.
Yes.
Well, they bought the church. The church is now
That's
going
what I
away.
thought.
So
That's something I missed.
Yes,
Okay.
they bought the church and they'll be demolishing the church.
Okay, all
So it
right.
goes away.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right.
thank you, Mr. President. I hope,
I
I hope we didn't treat you badly at one time.
Yeah.
I hope we didn't treat you badly.
No, I missed
wanna
that
make
part
sure.
with the church, 'cause I never seen a
I
sign
know
out
we
there
didn't, because we just
for
got.
sale or rezoning, so.
Thank you, Ken. All right, is there anyone else to speak against? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, if we will, we'll open this up for council discussion.
I have something to say. I'd like for you to tell Greg Parker, thank you for all that 2-for-1 fat candy right at the front door. Tell him thank you.
Yes, sir.
I do have a
Have to walk
question.
around.
Will this Parker be a kitchen as well? Will it serve food?
Yes, we rebranded a couple years ago to be Parker's Kitchen to have a full kitchen in the store, and we'll be serving our full menu at
Okay.
that store as well. Yes, and that's
Tired of
another,
driving a Pooler to get some chicken.
well, I was gonna say, we are getting rid of the church, but people do eat our chicken religiously, so that's a thing to consider. But also, we do need the parking because of the amount of people who are gonna be coming in. This isn't just a gas station, and it's also just not a convenience store. It's a convenience store or it's a restaurant that serves convenience and also has gasoline, so many uses. Although, it may be lumped into the same zoning as the properties across the road, it's a different type of business.
I have a question, Jonathan.
Yes.
So the site plan that I was looking at, is it still, the plan is that the kitchen, the building will be built parallel with the line with the bank behind it, so it kind of backs up to the bank's front parking lot?
Correct, that is correct. It will address north side.
And then there's also plans for a little pavilion, outdoor eating space away from North Main, kind of at the back corner of the property.
It's right on the side, that little gray spot to the right. I wish I had my
So
pointer.
the eating pavilion will be between the bank parking and your parking.
It will actually be between Main Street and our building. It's in the,
Oh, it's on the front corner, not on the back corner.
Yes.
sort of the side.
It's in the back half of the existing church.
This is,
Think
It's
about
right
that.
over here. It's right there.
that's the pavilion right here.
That's
Yeah.
what he's saying, it's alongside North Main.
I may be confused, I'm sorry. It's on the side of our building.
No, across.
So it's away from North Main Street. It's the back corner, like the backyard of the church now.
Wait, I thought you were asking about.
It's on the north main.
It's
on the north main.
It's on the north main side. It's the little gray thing on the side of the building.
So it is North Main, it's on the front of the property, alongside 301.
Oh, that's the trash, yeah.
Yeah, that's the dumpsters
You're
on
looking,
the left side if you're looking at the plan.
right there where he's pointing the mouse is the pavilion.
Right. And the dumpster's on the other
And the
side.
dumpster's hidden on the
Right
other
there.
side.
Okay. When I was looking at it, it just looked like it was further from the traffic. It doesn't make no sense to me to have kids sitting at a picnic table next to the highway.
Yeah, no, we got it stepped away from the road.
And in the way it's designed, it's being closed.
Yeah, you can't walk off of it. You have to go back to the building. There's a railing, so you can't walk off the back into the drive. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure the city will be looking at it. I just
Okay.
understood it differently and thought
The
it was
elevation
smart
might
to
show
have
it.
it back.
Go to the elevation.
Over there. Yeah, that's it on the second image down.
That's the pavilion on the,
And one reason we want it visible is so that people know we serve food and we want people to be able to go through that store.
Well, to address Sherry's concern, if you look at the front page of the document that you gave us, the top two images, it does not show a railing or a containment of that pavilion. That looks like an open pavilion that you could walk right into the driveway.
We can specify that if we need to.
I was just, addressing your concerns, that the image doesn't demonstrate what you said.
Yeah, I think David was referencing possibly an older one where we did have a type of metal awning structure that was growing green, vines up.
No, he just wants to know if we're gonna put a railing here.
That was Councilman Bar, or Councilwoman Barr.
If it's a safety concern, and as long as there's connectivity to the sidewalk, we do want the pavilion to connect safely to the sidewalk.
Yeah, and I like the staff also putting in the buffer, so that you got some buffer between the parking lot in front of Parker's and the chiropractic office, and then the safe haven is right behind you, right beside you too. So that is in the plans, to have a 5-foot buffer with fence and.
No. Can we see a picture exactly where this is?
It's, you know where Safe Haven and Warren Chiropractic is, from there forward.
Isn't it on the opposite side?
It's right next to the old Farmers and Merchants Bank.
Right, that's on the
corner.
opposite side.
No, it's on,
Safe Haven is on,
Safe Haven is right now.
Oh,
you're talking about the actual building.
The outreach building is right there.
Got you.
North Main Street, west side.
It's right here, right?
Yep, and then there's the church.
isn't Safe Haven on this side?
Safe Haven's on,
It's over here.
it's on the east side of West Main, of North
it's
Main.
North College, it's on the, yes.
Oh, it's North College is right here.
It's on the east side of North College.
Oh, okay, it is,
There's
it
College
is.
Street.
It's gonna be where? It's on the opposite, so
It's the east side, north, south side.
this is here, where it is.
That's the church, and then they're buying all this property here, and there's the bank line, and it'll be, and
Safe
here's the
Haven is here.
chiropractic, and
Oh, okay.
That's right. Our railing right next door.
Y'all have somewhere to go for lunch.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, ma'am. All right, thank you.
You wanna make sure safe.
All right,
And Kathy, to address Councilwoman Mack's concern, that setback between the property and the chiropractic center, that's a standard setback, is it not? They're not asking for a variance. The only variances they're asking for is along north side and along North Main, correct? Or, I'm sorry, along north side and along the back,
Along the back, that's correct.
which butts up to the
bank.
To the bank's
To the bank.
driveway, really.
Right.
Yeah, these in red.
Yes, just those areas in red. You can see they're the rear, and then the front was where the canopy is. So they want the
Right.
canopy in the front setback. And then the middle rectangle is essentially the amount of parking spaces that they're asking for a variance for.
all right.
I just have one other question for Jason.
Councilman, let us, just for procedure, let us close this here.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We did,
We did close it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
All right, I'm back.
Go ahead, back on.
Okay, right there where north side turns south onto North Main Street, right? I hesitate to say this, but that corner gets clipped by trucks every single dang day, because for some reason, we can't convince those suckers to go down the bypass and around the city.
That's right.
So one, is that adjustment to the corner going to address that, which is almost unfortunate, because I'd rather not make it easier for them to turn. And I noticed a little bit of the corners off, but not a whole lot. Is that gonna be enough? Because I'm telling you, I mean, the curbing gets beat up, the signs get runned over,
good job, Phil.
It's okay.
Dang, must be getting
It's
late.
been a long day.
It's a long day.
Anyway, the corner gets beat up, the signs get run over, and I'm concerned, that, folks, if that's gonna have a more, substantial sidewalk, you understand my concern?
Correct, sir. So they'll have to apply for a GDOT encroachment permit, and so
Okay.
everything they do in that GDOT right of way will have to comply with GDOT standards. So it will be as good, if not better, than what's there now.
Okay. So theoretically then, they could take this to GDOT and GDOT could say, nah, that's not enough, you gotta back it up, and this could all change a little bit.
They could.
Okay.
Any further discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve agenda items 16A, 16B, 16C, 16D, 16E with staff recommendations?
I'm sorry, Jonathan, could we add the concern about the safety, just make that an additional contingency?
Okay.
Are you speaking of the railing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, staff is recommending no on D, correct?
Yes.
So we would be approving A, B, C, and E, but no on D. Is that correct?
Kathy?
D, I believe, is the one that the applicant withdrew. That's the size of the parking spaces?
From 9.5 and 18 by 18.5 to 9
Yes,
and 18.
and they agreed to abide by our standards.
So do we even need to vote on that
was
one?
moved at this point.
Yeah, it's
It's
moot.
muted.
Okay, well, we don't wanna, you said not to approve it, and then we approve it behind,
Yeah.
So D is out of the equation, so we're only looking
Yeah,
at A,
can
B,
you agree?
C,
Yeah, we can agree, we don't need,
So-
Yeah,
need that
that's,
variance.
staff recommendations kind of cover that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
And
did.
staff
Yeah, but if we
recommends-
approve D, we
Yeah,
approve D.
Yeah,
Right, we had said no, and they said fine.
okay.
Same thing on E, right? You know, the parking places in the front?
No, we need that.
We
E,
can
vote
we recommended denial, but
Correct.
the applicant has not withdrawn that application for E.
Let's vote on the others.
Planning board did recommend approval, however.
Okay.
Planning board did recommend.
That is correct.
The city staff would
All right, so we-
recommend denying the last one.
So let us do this, we'll break them out one by one, and then we'll go from there. All right, is there a motion to approve, 16A with
So-
staff recommendations?
So we
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, is there a motion to approve 16B with staff recommendations?
So,
Is there a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those approve 16C with staff recommendations, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
I'm
16,
sorry, so which one do we need to add the amendment to?
D.
The additional staff? I thought D was the one.
D is mute right now, so we're not gonna bring D.
So where do we need to add the one about the safety concerns?
That's gonna be an additional amendment,
Okay.
okay? All right, okay, we'll move down to 16E, which is there a motion to approve 16E with staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And Jason, would that be an appropriate place to put the safety conditions?
Sure. That'd work.
I will make a motion
Needs
to
to be there
add an
somewhere.
amendment, according to, Ms. Barr's recommendations.
Okay, this is the
Wait,
one
I'm
that,
sorry.
this is the one.
This is, E is for parking spaces, I got it, I'll take care of it. Is there a motion to approve 16E?
Well, I want to clarify, because 16E is the one that staff recommended denial.
Denial, that's why I said, wait a minute, because you
Okay.
said according to staff,
Okay, 16E, is that denial, Kathy?
from staff.
Staff, but remember, the planning commission approved it.
D,
Right.
D.
D was the one that was removed, that was removed, that was muted.
That is correct.
E was approved by planning
That is
commission,
correct.
but
and
denied by staff. Okay,
Exactly.
so there's a decision that needs to be made on E.
Let's go, start over.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve 16E per the planning commission, or is there a motion to deny based on staff?
A motion to approve,
Okay, all right.
Based on staff?
based on the planning commission.
Planning commission approved. All right, is there a second?
It's the parking spaces.
What do they want to do with the parking space? Why did you guys not,
Can we address that? or-
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the ordinance talks about 25% right in the front of the building. Okay, so you take the number of parking spaces multiplied by 0.25, and that's how many you're allowed. So if we don't get the variance, we would only be allowed like 8 parking spaces in the front. We could still build it, but that really wouldn't serve our customers' needs, because we need the amount of parking for that. The other thing we talked to staff about, that we could put parking on the side of the building, get rid of the pavilion, that would increase our parking count, allowing the percentage to go up in front. We don't wanna do that. We think it's better to have the pavilion, increase it from 25 to 45%, and we think everybody wins. Just good site plan. So we really need the approval, otherwise we probably cannot build it.
Kathy, you gonna say something?
Just to reiterate that this is in the downtown design district, and the guidelines are very specific in terms of the number of spaces that are allowed in the front of a building, and that's what we based our disapproval on.
So Kathy, one other thing, didn't they say in the meeting, if we would have parked heading along the road, it would have been allowed? Remember? That was brought up. So that's, but this is better where it is.
Well, we're looking at
We'll let them vote,
this
yeah.
site plan. This
We'll
is
let
what's
them
up here for.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to make a point, and I was trying to make this the best, site possible, just the aesthetics we want to really add to the built environment here. There are going to be cars parked at that canopy. Hopefully, we hope, that this is a very busy site, all the time. We're not really, proving any point or adding any benefit to not allowing us to have parking spaces along the front of the store, which are the primary parking spots for customers to pull in and park at, because you're going to have cars sitting at the canopy. Anyway, we're providing a nice buffer along the street there to help buffer the parking area and the circulation and stuff. So it really doesn't serve, we don't feel it serves the point of the ordinance to not allow us to have those parking spaces up front. It just would not build the best possible site.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Another parker that's here, let's say the one on campus, how many parking spaces do you know?
I'm not exactly sure,
Okay.
but I'm not sure if it also has.
It's not a kitchen.
It's not a kitchen,
Yeah.
but I think it's a lot,
Mhm.
and it's still
Well,
never any parking.
We generally try to do, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe about 40 plus.
We do about 45 on a typical
parking
store, and
spaces.
it'll only be 31 on this one.
Yeah, so this is already below what we would typically have on a site.
There's one on 301, Parker's. And there's actually Uncle Shug's there, which would be, a kitchen. How many parking spaces are
It's
there?
not a kitchen though, because you can't, they don't have the full kitchen.
Well,
At
it's
that one.
considered a restaurant. Uncle Shug's.
The one on Park, oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the Parkers, I'm sorry.
It is a Parker's.
Yeah, but the Parkers
Yeah,
isn't a
Shoes is
kitchen
separate
itself.
from that, yeah.
Yeah,
But with the new kitchen and
This one has a whole restaurant.
we've been doing 45 in the Charleston area, everywhere. 45 to 50 spaces because of the turnover of people in the Savannah too. So
Not to mention, with the kitchen, we staff more people.
Mhm.
Those people are gonna need parking places as well.
Okay.
Kathy, may I ask you one more question?
Sure.
This is at the edge of the downtown district, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's at the
And
end.
Parkers has agreed to put what do they call it, a marker sign
A
that says, welcome to
gateway
Statesboro.
sign.
Gateway, sorry.
Yes.
That being said, and I understand your position, the staff's position for sure, and we don't want to create precedent in the downtown area. That said, as this is on the edge of the downtown district, and considering this is on that major, at that point, it's a 5-lane road on Northside Drive, wouldn't you say that this property is not characteristic of the other properties throughout downtown?
To an extent, yes, but I would say it's a more important property because of its gateway function. And the fact that we've already got 3 other parking spaces, 3 other gas stations at that intersection. What's the image that you want to propose driving into downtown? And
Right.
That was a concern.
Council, you got a decision to make.
So
I
right now,
still recommend.
we're just at, you guys feel that you don't have enough parking
In the front of the building.
in the front of the building.
And right now, we're allowing 8, or recommending 8, and you guys want 11, is that what it?
well, it'd be 25% of 31, but we would probably revise the site plan to add more parking to the side to increase our count in the front. So we'd probably drop the pavilion in order to accomplish that.
And again, it sounds like there's a question of, is this the right project for this corner? Well, we can still build it without the parking, it's just not the best for the people who are gonna be shopping there every day. And it's not gonna function as the optimal.
And another thing, to the point of the gateway sign that we did, we're doing the intersection improvements, we did increase that radius to 50 feet. We're rebuilding the curbs. that landscape strip along the front is only required to be, I believe, either 5 or 10, I think 5 foot. We're up to 15 to 18 foot. So, I mean, you know, we're trying to do everything to mitigate the little bit of additional parking, like 4 or 5 spaces that we get by going from the 25% to the 45%. So,
And the striped parking space for the handicap also counts as a space,
Yeah.
so we're down one
So-
with that too.
And the bank right next door, I mean, all
That's
their
public
parking is
parking.
right up front.
Yeah.
Well, so, I mean, it wouldn't, I don't think it detracts.
I agree with you. I don't think this is one that the downtown district is, I don't think this is gonna negatively affect. If they have.
And-
People from First Friday aren't gonna be walking around.
Right. And I'm also thinking about Embark, if they have the standards, it's no parking there. And this is a big intersection, and if it's gonna have that gateway sign, people are gonna go there. And I mean, do you want people parking in the bank? Getting towed? I settle with what I said, I mean, you guys have to.
Am I hearing from council that we want to, is there a motion to approve 16E per planning commission?
So move.
Is there a second?
So we're approving.
Plenty.
the variance.
To allow more parking.
To allow more parking
Yeah.
spaces.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, and so,
Thank you so much.
and if we will, is there a motion, Sherry, I would like for you to make, the motion for your amendment.
I move that we add the safety rating consideration to planning commission's list of contingencies on this property.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we move down to agenda
Don't
items.
forget to tell him about those 2-for-1.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, we move down to agenda item 17. This consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2020-18, a resolution to adopt the third amendment to the fiscal year 2020 budget for each fund of the city of Statesboro, Georgia, appropriating the amounts shown in each budget as expenditures and expenses, adopting the several items of revenue anticipations and prohibiting expenditures or expenses from exceeding the actual funding appropriated. Mr. King.
Mayor, members of the council, this is simply to amend our current year's budget. Some line items in the general fund had to be increased. Some of the other funds, example is we borrowed money, we had to appropriate it, and so we have to amend our 2020 budget. And so we do recommend that you approve this amendment.
All right. Any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All those in, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 18, which is,
Got to ask for nays.
oh, my bad. Anybody opposed?
Nay.
Okay. All right. All right, so we move down to agenda item 18, consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2020-19, a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2021 budget for each fund of the city of Statesboro, Georgia, appropriating the amount shown in each budget as expenditures and expenses, adopting the several items of revenue anticipations, and prohibiting expenditures or expenses from exceeding the actual funding available for the appropriations. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, members of the council, this is the recommended budget for 2021. And we've had public hearings, and again, this budget is for $69,279,622. No tax increase. The only increased item in this budget is for the stormwater fee of to go from $3.95 to $5 per ERU. There are some fee adjustments for the special event permits, and you will adopt that next. But we do recommend to you the approval of the 2021 budget and recommend that you approve that budget.
Okay. Any discussion by council?
I do have one item, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for bringing this up kind of late in the budget process, but I've had some folks reach out to me about the budget item specifically related to what? You were waving your finger at me.
Yeah, before you say that, could I add one more thing?
Sure.
And Mayor, members of the council, I apologize for this, but in the budget, we did have some discussions, and I sent you out an email in reference to funding requests for the Boys and Girls Club, which I did recommend that council leave in the budget, and we do have a memorandum of understanding which we will put on the next council meeting agenda with the Boys and Girls Club, but we do recommend that you fund the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, sorry. Nope, thanks for the lead-in, perfect.
I'm sorry.
That being said, I've had a number of folks from the community reach out to me. I've done a little bit of research myself, and again, I apologize I wasn't able to reach out to anybody, but I was getting information even as early as earlier today. That being said, I'm gonna make the motion. I'm just gonna talk about it first, but I'm gonna make the motion to approve the budget, but I also want to add an increase in that budget to the Boys and Girls Club. Want to double down on what they do and take it from 9,000 to 20. And I'll give you some of the stats that I was able to look at. 91% of the, we focused on youth and youth development. I mean, we've got a committee that's committed to youth development. And when I started looking at the real results that they have, and Sherry, I think you sat on the board, if you don't sit on there right now, so you probably know some of this stuff, but the Boys and Girls Club, those students that go there on a half-time to full-time basis, 98% graduation or promotion rate, which is 26 percentage points higher than the state and the local school system itself. 67% improved grades, 79% improved homework, 91% saw improvement in behavior. And we're talking about raising up people out of poverty and getting them education. Education is the #1 way for the kids in the next generation to get out of poverty. 91% of the kids that go to that center are in poverty. So with that being said, we can certainly discuss it after I make the motion, but I'm going to make the motion to approve the budget with the addendum to the line item for the Boys and Girls Club to raise that to $20,000 per year. That being said, I did have one conversation with City Manager Charles Penny earlier today, and he said he could make that work. So that's my motion.
Very good. All right, any further discussion by council?
I do have some discussion, and I think that will be a good thing that Councilman Boyum is saying, but I also don't want us to forget about the YMCA. And I don't have all of my research like you do, but I have been looking into some things, and I just think that if we're going to give to one organization, that we need to give to both organizations. And I was going to say maybe we could split it but you came with the 20,000. I'm like, well, what else can we do?
Well, I can just say the YMCA does not provide those kind of youth services. It is primarily, honestly, a gym. It's primarily run by membership. They do not serve the underserved community. I mean, this is kids that have 77% of the kids that go to this place have single parents who have a hard time taking care of them. And these kids go, they have structure. I mean, Sherry knows all that. She's going to nod all the way. So we have a contract. We have a design contract for them, but the YMCA just does not provide these kinds of services. They don't provide meals for kids. They don't provide tutoring services for kids. They don't provide the same level of service, and they don't serve the underserved community. The YMCA that is not their target demographic whatsoever. So I would not be in favor of any more than we give it to any other nonprofit. But I mean, this is something that we could contract with them for services. We have that youth development committee, and I think what they do, I was astounded by the percentages that I saw. I mean, 98% graduation rate. How are you going to do better than that? And, like I said, the YMCA does not do tutoring, these kinds of things, so that's my motion.
I agree with what you say, and they may not, do as much as the Boys and Girls Club, but as of right now, we're in COVID, and a lot of things are closed down, and the YMCA is one of the programs here who has a summer camp for the kids. You know, they have services that can help the children in the city of Statesboro.
That childcare is a temporary thing, it's not a permanent.
No, it's every summer, for sure. And even with us doing the parks and saying that we're going to get a pool, the YMCA, that's something that they offer. So I'm not taking anything from the Boys and Girls Club. Everything that you said, that's great. But there's other organizations here in the city that we could help as well.
I wish we would have gotten this prior to.
I guess that I apologize, Mayor.
Yeah, apology accepted. This is a slippery slope because I just don't believe that the role of government is supposed to, this is not what I think government should be doing. If government is contracting with any entity, then it has to have an outlined service that they are providing. And so I don't understand how a $9,000 service turns into a $20,000 service, and there's been no amendment to the memorandum of understanding or the expectations of what we're getting for that $20,000. So to just, and to me, and I don't know what are you looking at, but just to pull $20,000 out of the air for a product that we were paying $9,000 for, and now all of a sudden it's worth $20,000, and there's been no addition to the service that we're going to receive. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I can understand if there were additional services that we were going to receive or something that we can identify that this entity is doing that the city cannot do for itself. Then we can make that happen, but we just can't go around and give money to feel-good organizations and we don't have an identified, this is what we're doing. It's kind of like if I go to the gas station and I'm giving them my money for gas, then I expect to get gas. Thank you. What are we getting for that $20,000?
Well, yeah, I think Charles said he was gonna present the memorandum of understanding. I mean, I can certainly say, with the
memorandum of understanding is based on the current $9,000 number.
Jonathan,
And go ahead.
if I could offer a friendly suggestion, we could ask staff to have a conversation with YMCA and see if they are providing services at no cost to low-income children such that they wanted to explore entering into a memorandum of understanding with us, like what we have with Boys and Girls Club. So we could explore the possibility if they are eligible and able to provide similar services, then we should look at whether we could do that too. I just was able to pull up the memorandum of understanding, and basically it's just saying that they're going to continue offering their services. The city shall remit $9,000 annually to subsidize programming offered to underserved juvenile populations in the city of Statesboro. So we could just amend it to say that we're going to remit $20,000, and that's going to allow them to serve that many more children. I mean, your question was the difference in the agreement. If we're not spelling out what we get for the $9,000, we're just subsidizing them to be able to provide services to more children, more low-income children.
in their budget, they have a $1.3 million budget.
So
This is a drop in the bucket. We're gonna drop $100,000 for a downtown master plan. We're gonna drop $250,000 in just a minute into a loan fund.
I think that's not the argument.
We're gonna do 3.57
Each one of those things, we have a service that we identified, the $100,000 for a master
This
plan.
is serving under
I understand, listen,
privileged.
I built my reputation in this community working with underprivileged and at-risk children. What, the point that I'm making is that it's not that I don't want to help. We need to be very specific what we're asking them. Okay, we're gonna pay you $20,000. It's not our job to subsidize the Boys and Girls Club or any other nonprofit within this community. I work for the Boys and Girls Club, I've worked for the YMCA. They both have outstanding services that they provide. But if we're gonna do this for the Boys and Girls Club, why not the YMCA? Why not this organization? Why not that organization? And so I think that we're going into a slippery slope, and just to think that the genesis of this was the fact that it was done without a memorandum of understanding from the gate, and we were just donating, and we were just giving the money with no contractual agreement, no services, and my point is that this is a slippery slope to go down for government. And so if you wanna give $9,000, if we're gonna pay, we need to be able to go back to the people and say, okay, this is, with $9,000, we're able to serve these many children, not just serve children, but to serve, there has to be an allotment number of children. There has to be, what will these children that we're paying for, what will they be getting? So we can be very specific in regards to why we are funding that particular number. But to just go and say, okay, we're gonna give you $20,000 to subsidize your programming, then why not do that programming for when the 21st Century program was here, or when Goodwill had its mentoring program, or any of those different things. So what I'm saying is that this is a slippery slope. If we want to get into a contractual agreement where a service is provided, and we know the number of children that we are helping, then okay, let's do that. But let's just not throw an arbitrary number out there with a feel-good memorandum of understanding, and we can't go back and tangibly say that this is what we are getting. And again, I don't think, I will put my record of advocating for youth in this community up against anyone. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to the people that we serve.
Sure, and I agree with you, Mayor. We should absolutely put that in the memorandum of understanding, and I'm happy to put that in my motion as well. But I can say the Boys and Girls Club of Albany is subsidized by the city. The Boys and Girls Club of Athens, the Boys and Girls Club of Baldwin and Jones County, the Boys and Girls Club of Central Georgia, which is Macon, Fort Valley, Whitfield County, Hall County, Jackson County, North Central Georgia, Northwest Georgia, Southeast Georgia, Brunswick, Cook County, West Georgia, Coastal Empire, Valdosta, and Augusta. All of those cities contract in various ways. Some of them build facilities and actually own buildings.
They contract, right? We don't have a contract with this Boys and Girls Club.
I just said that we would put a condition in there that the MOU gets signed, and if you want to oversee the MOU, I got no problem with that. We're not going to write them a check tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm just very cautious of this, and I just said that I work for the Boys and Girls Club, I work for the YMCA, so I'm pretty familiar with it. And so with that being said, I think that we're going into a slippery slope, saying that we're going to give $20,000 and we have no contract, no nothing. We just pull the number out of the air, and then we're going to write a contract to meet that $20,000 obligation. And that's what I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about that. So,
but $9,000 is okay, but $20,000 is a range.
Oh, no. I've said from the gate what my position was, the fact that we did not have an MOU. I said it from the beginning. Well, with that being said, council, you have the vote, you have the motion, so it's, the motion's been placed on the floor that we continue the payment with the Boys and Girls Club with an increase of $20,000.
To $20,000, not an increase to $20,000.
That's what I just said.
Well,
Man, quit trying to correct me. With that being said, is there a second to that motion?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Penny.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Goodell?
I think he was just sighing.
Mayor, members of the council, the budget you have before you has $9,000. At some point, we can amend that budget if there's a desire to do that. But the balanced budget today has $9,000. And we can work toward, you can amend it later, but the current budget that you're gonna adopt only has the $9,000. We would also have to increase revenue in order to be able to cover that additional $11,000. Now, you can come, if you wanna do that, you can, but the current, my recommendation was to approve the amount that was there. And if y'all wanna increase it, you can, and we'll have to increase the revenues accordingly.
John, can I also clarify, so you have this memorandum of understanding that you and Boys and Girls Club have looked at, and if we vote on it today, then are you familiar with it?
They have not seen the document. I had, the city attorney drafted the document, and I shared it with you, but I was not gonna share it with them if y'all aren't gonna fund it, because that would defeat, I wouldn't do that to my bosses.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I make a
Go ahead.
recommendation maybe? At some point in the future, can we sit down and think about these places, that help children? Cause if any time in this world we have ever needed to teach the children, now's the time.
To me, now that I have no problem, if we can sit down and have a real discussion.
Absolutely.
About what we're gonna do about, and it's funny you bringing that up, because that was gonna be in my conversation at the end. We need a real plan in regards of what we're gonna do for the youth in this community.
I want to be on that committee.
And that is actually part of what we wanna talk in light of, and I'll just go ahead and go into it now. In light of what happened to the young lady that was in our community, it was a horrible, horrible accident, but we are 6 days away from a 1-year anniversary of PJ's death. We still have not found the murderer for that. If we're gonna do something for the young people, I want a full-fledged, wholehearted plan that we're working within the community. And we're not just throwing money at it, but we have a plan forward. That's what needs to happen, and that was the purpose for all of the commissions. And I understand the last council, when I was pushing the commissions before, the council did not understand why we needed to fund them at this time. But in this moment right now, in wake of PJ, in wake of Haley, in wake of Akila, in the wake of Tamashe, in the wake of all of these people that's lost their lives, maybe, hopefully now we have a council that sees that, okay, we're gonna have to do something real in order to save our children within this community. And so that's really what that is about. And so if we're gonna spend that money, let's have a real plan and a real expectation of what we're going to do within our community.
Make sure we're gonna get.
Yeah, we have to know that.
Tenfold with educated, happy, and.
Yes.
Good young citizens.
Absolutely. So what I would like to ask the council to do is let's pass the budget as recommended. And then let's have a real conversation about youth in this community, and what we are willing to do. And I'm telling you, I am a mayor that's willing to commit 100% and put the resources behind it. We just won't buy a backhoe. We just won't buy a pickup truck. But we'll figure out what we can do to really make a concerted effort to organize and save our children in this community. And when PJ was killed, I'm gonna be real on that current council. We did not have a soul show up to the youth, the town hall on youth in our community. But I feel today that if we did it today, we're gonna have faces at that. And so the youth in this community has been a top priority from day one, and I thank God that now we have a council that's willing to commit to it. So my motion is, let's approve as is, and then let's come back and have a real conversation, a real work session on what we're gonna do for our youth in the community.
I stand by my motion, Mayor, and if nobody wants to second it, then it will die and somebody else can make a motion.
All right, is there a second? All right, seeing that there's no second, is there a motion to approve, the budget per staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, all right, we have a 3-2 vote. All right, we'll go to, agenda item 19, which is consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2020-20, a resolution adopting Statesboro schedule of rates, fees, and fines. Mr. Penn.
Mayor, members of the council, annually you adopt the schedule of rates, fees, and fines. And in particular, in this document, as I stated earlier, we include the new stormwater fee, which goes up $1.05. We also have included the alcohol special event permit fee, and we recommend your approval of this document.
Okay, thank you. All right, any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those opposed?
Nay.
All right, vote on one.
I have a question about 18. Can we go back? Is that allowed?
Okay, go ahead.
So with us approving it, we're still giving that 9,000 to the Boys and Girls Club this year?
Yes, yes, it's included in the
With
budget.
the signed memorandum of understanding. Agenda item 20. Consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2020-21, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Statesboro designating June 19th as Juneteenth Independence Day in honor of June 19th, 1865, the date on which news of the end of slavery reached the slaves in the southwestern states, and designated Juneteenth as a paid city holiday for 2021. The purpose of that, this is brought about as a measure to really start to educate not just ourselves, but the greater community about the importance of inclusion. And we felt that it would be a great opportunity for the city of Statesboro to take the lead on recognizing a holiday that's already recognized across 45 different states. And so the resolution reads as follows. Resolution of the mayor and city and council of the city of Statesboro designating June 19th as Juneteenth Independence Day in honor of the June 19th, 1865, the date in which news of the end of slavery reached the slaves in the southwestern states. Whereas news of the end of slavery did not reach the frontier areas of the United States, in particular the state of Texas and other southwestern states, until months after the conclusion of the Civil War. More than 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. Whereas on June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, with news that the Civil War had ended and the enslaved were free. Whereas African Americans who had been slaves in the Southwest celebrated June 19th, commonly known as Juneteenth Independence Day, as inspiration and encouragement for future generations. Whereas African Americans from the Southwest have continued the tradition of observing Juneteenth Independence Day for more than 150 years. Whereas Juneteenth Independence Day began as a holiday in the state of Texas and is now celebrated in 46 states, including Georgia and the District of Columbia, as a special day of observance and recognition for the emancipation of all slaves in the United States. Whereas Juneteenth Independence Day celebrations have been held to honor African American freedom while encouraging self-development and respect for all cultures. Whereas the faith and strength of character demonstrated by former slaves and the descendants of former slaves remain an example for all people of the United States, regardless of background, religion, or race. Whereas slavery was not officially abolished until the ratification of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States in December 1865. And whereas over the course of its history, the United States has grown into a symbol of democracy and freedom around the world. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the city of Statesboro hereby, 1, designate June 19th as Juneteenth Independence Day. 2, recognizes the historical significance of Juneteenth Independence Day to the United States. 3, supports the continued nationwide celebration of Juneteenth Independence Day to provide an opportunity for the people of the United States to learn more about the past and to better understand the experiences that have shaped the United States. 4, recognizes that the observance of the end of slavery is part of the history and heritage of the United States. Okay, we're gonna get this turn. And 5, designates the observance June 19th as a paid holiday, as such designation affects city employees' operations and related policies, beginning in calendar year 2021. In those years that June 19th falls on Saturday, it should be observed by the city on June 18th. In those years that the 19th falls on a Sunday, it shall be observed by City Hall on June 19th. Any discussion by council?
I just have one question. I support the resolution as written. I did just need to ask, Mr. Penny, has an extra vacation day been included in the budget that we just passed? I mean, for 327 employees, that's an extra paid holiday. It says paid holiday.
Has it been included?
Yes. I mean, we put in holidays, New Year's,
Right now,
Thanksgiving and all that kind of stuff. It's
Right
in the
now, we have 10 paid holidays.
Uh-huh.
And
This
so
would make it 11, right?
if you do this, it'll take us to 11 paid holidays.
Is that included in the 2021 budget we just passed? 11 paid holidays.
Right now, it's only 10 paid holidays in there.
And you know how much of an extra holiday, I mean, I can't imagine you do, so.
I'm
Come on, you can't just pull that?
I can't pull that out. I can't pull that out there. I'm sorry.
Cindy's standing up.
Cindy, can you do that?
I can get a little explanation about it. With our 40-hour-a-week employees, it wouldn't affect anything because they already are gonna get paid for that day. So any kind of extra cost will be with our shift workers. So like if you work a 40-hour-a-week, you're gonna get paid if you work 8 hours. So the holiday would be 8 hours. So that would be how.
Yeah, they just won't go to work that day.
They won't go
Yeah, I
to work,
understand.
right.
It's
So
normal.
on those, it wouldn't have any effect. It would be some of our shift workers where they may only work half a day on that day if it were to fall on a Friday. Some of our employees work 4 9s and Friday would be a 4, so that's where some of the effect would be.
But you don't have a dollar figure.
I do not have a dollar figure.
Good job.
Thank you. Any further discussion by council? All right. Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in
So
favor?
are we gonna amend the budget then? Is that how we're gonna do this?
Yeah.
I mean, we just talked about, we complained about 11,000, we don't even know, I'm just curious.
Yeah. If we need to amend the budget, I'm quite sure the staff will make that recommendation.
Again, there may be some impact with holiday time for police and fire, and we will have to accommodate that. But it's not included in this year's budget, but we can let you know by the next council meeting what the impact is.
Okay. All right, we had a second, we had a first, we had a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, let's show that agenda item, 20 has passed. We'll move down to agenda item 21. Consideration of a motion to restrict $125,000 in the water and sewer fund and $125,000 in the natural gas fund for the loan loss reserve established May 19th, 2020. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, members of the council, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, you established you approved the establishment of a loan loss reserve, and then you entered into an agreement with Carver State Bank to provide small business loans. And all this is tonight, mayors, we need for our records to document that we are setting aside, we are restricting $125,000 in the water and sewer fund and $125,000 in the gas fund that would be used to establish the loan loss reserve. And we need that for our records, and that provides that restriction.
Okay, thank you. All right, any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move down to agenda item 22, consideration of a motion to award contract extension for audit services. Mr. Penny.
Yeah, Mayor, every year we have to have an audit prepared for the city. And what we're recommending to you is that I think we're at the end of a term with Lanier, Deal, and Proctor. And so what we need to do is extend that for an additional year. If we're gonna go out for proposals, we need to start earlier in the year because we're at the end of the year now. And so what we're recommending is that we extend a contract for another year at a price of $46,000. And then the other thing I would just simply tell you, audit firms that can do municipal governments are not that numerous. And so when you find somebody that's doing a good job at a reasonable cost, you're going to try to hold on to them as long as you can.
Okay.
So we recommend it to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Penny. Any discussion by council? Seeing that there's none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 23, which is consideration of motion to approve a 5-year intergovernmental agreement with Bullock County to renew and amend terms of provision to Statesboro Fire Department services with the 5 Mile District. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, members of the council, we informed you that we have an annual agreement with Bullock County for fire service and the fire district. And last year we had to extend that agreement for 1 more year. I'm pleased to tell you today that this morning Bullock County approved the intergovernmental service agreement, intergovernmental agreement for a 5-year term. And so what that 5-year term will allow us to do, it will help us with our planning purposes, but it will also add some additional funds. Just the one major point being that the first year of the agreement, we will receive 1.8 mil, and that's what we currently receive from Bullock County for fire service in the fire district. But from year 2 through 5, we will go to 2.25 mil for fire services in the fire district. In addition to that, we also ask that should the city receive the SAFER grant, which would mean the possibility of 22 additional firefighters, but then at the end of 3 years, then we have to have additional funds to cover the cost of those firefighters. And so what this agreement will allow us to do is we would need to come back to Bullock County to renegotiate for an increased millage in order to cover their costs, their share of the cost. And so we're not locked in that if we get the SAFER grant, that we can't get some additional millage from Bullock County in order to provide that fire service in the fire district. Chairman Thompson and Commissioner Stringer were there, and Councilmember Sherry Barr represented you, and then we had the fire chief, myself, Ms. Cindy Kane, and Jason, and we were able to reach this agreement. We do recommend approval of this intergovernmental agreement with Bullock County for fire service.
Thank you. Any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's show that agenda item 24 is passed. We move down to agenda item 25, which is consideration of a motion to approve the mayor to execute a letter of commitment for maintenance and lighting of intersection improvements for South Main Street and Fairroad intersection. Mr. Penny.
We just need authorization for you to be able to sign that letter of commitment and support for that intersection on South Main Street with the roundabout.
All right, any discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That show that agenda item 25 is passed. We move down to consideration of a motion to cancel the July 7th, 2020 meeting of mayor and council. I think that's straight to the point. Any discussion by council?
Ms.
No,
It's
25.
We
Ooh, I
did
skipped the whole thing. And I'm not gonna tell you what I just wrote down, but I skipped the whole thing. Consider 25, consideration of a motion. I'm trying to go home now. Consideration of a motion to approve the mayor to execute a letter of commitment for maintenance and lighting for intersection improvements for South Main Street and Fair Road intersection. Again.
So moved.
Second.
Who did the first one?
John.
I did the first one, you did the second one.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We need a
All
pass.
right, and so,
Yeah.
all right. So we do, consideration of a motion to cancel the July 7th, 2020 meeting of mayor and council. Any discussion by council? Seeing
So
it?
moved.
Okay, there you go, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 27, other business from city council. Councilman William, made a request of, Chief Broadhead, and being able to get some, information about the past 30 days. So I don't know what that commercial communication looked like, so.
I haven't seen it either.
Okay, but no, you, Chief perked up. Fast enough.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Take one and pass it down.
You know it's that kid in class.
Yeah, come on,
I
man.
have two.
Yeah.
No, so no.
Yeah, Chief sent it to me and I made copies for you.
Okay, okay.
Mayor and council, will be brief, and it's been a long evening. We have had a recent uptick in violence in the city dating back to about May 6th. I want to make you all aware of. Each of the 10 incidents that have been listed for you on that sheet involve shooting incidents. In those 10 shootings, we've had 2 homicides, as well as 2 additional aggravated assault cases where people were injured very seriously from gunfire. These 10 instances are instances where people were actually shot at or near. This does not include random shots fired calls that we've been responding to in apartment complexes where we were never able to find anybody or find any reason for those shots fired. So we just want to make sure you guys are all aware of it. We're working very diligently to try to track down the perpetrators of these. You'll see in several of those that arrests have been made or warrants have been issued. Obviously, the homicide from just this weekend is in progress at the moment. I do expect an arrest to be made on that case soon, but I can't disclose the ongoing investigation, but things are looking positive as far as our ability to identify the shooter in that case. Do you have any questions about these as you peruse them? I'd be happy to answer them. Long.
Okay. And then,
With these folks, a number of them from Statesboro,
Almost exclusively, these folks are the victims and the shooters tend to be in Statesboro or right in the immediate vicinity of Statesboro's residents. The homicide this weekend involved a number of people who were from Evans County and that area, but most of these are our own folks. They're having disputes that they're settling with gunfire. And one thing I would like to say is that law enforcement by its nature is very much reactive. We don't have the authority to intervene in a shooting before it happens necessarily, and so then it really relies on the initial responding officers to make sure the scene is protected, render aid when they can, and then those detectives who've been working literally around the clock. I don't know if you know, we have 7 detectives in this city, and they are literally busting their home to try to make arrests in these cases, and some of them require a lot of legwork, video, finding videos, serving search warrants on phones, just trying to connect the dots in some of these. So I'm real proud of them and the work that they're doing. We are going to bring people to justice in every case that we can, obviously, but it does a lot of legwork being involved.
and is this unique to Statesboro, or is this something that we see trending across the country?
Mayor, I think it's a great question. I need to see it trending all across the country. I have friends in law enforcement in a number of cities across America. All of them are seeing this exact same uptick in violence. I think that what we're seeing is a psychological issue related to the anxiety over the pandemic, the restrictions that were in place that people were trying to, sort of rebel against in some cases. Then obviously the Minneapolis murder that has really kind of lit the country on fire, and we're seeing a lot of angst and anxiety over that, and I just think it's manifesting itself in outward acts of frustration and violence.
Okay. And this is, and this is, I just kind of want to get clarity on this. This is, we see that it's not unique to Statesboro, but this is still Statesboro, right? And we want to make sure that our citizens are as safe as possible. And when I had paused out for a little while, I was just thinking, right now, we have 4 cases that I know of, and Chief, you can correct me, where someone, well, 3 cases where someone has lost their life. And we're still waiting to bring some people to justice. Akila was killed 9 years ago. That case is still unsolved. PJ was killed. It'll be 365 days, in 6 days from now. Haley, she just lost her life. And I'm gonna tell you guys, like I told her family this morning at the press conference, is that if any child is in Statesboro, then that's our child, okay?
Yes, sir.
And so we're gonna do everything we can to make sure these families can get some closure. Tamashe, 2 years ago this month, he lost his life. And these are children, these are babies that we are talking about here. And we have to do something. And the truth of the matter is that we're gonna have to engage our young people on a real level, because we have gangs moving into this community, and they are engaging our young people on a real level. And so we got, if we're gonna talk about young people, we're gonna talk about keeping our community safe, we got to figure out what's going to be the best approach to do so. And I'm going to tell you, Sunday morning to wake up and to find out that a young person had lost their life over the weekend, that was heartbreaking, considering that it's the weekend before Father's Day. That's deep. This man right here has lost he's lost his daughter, his only daughter. Well, no, he has another daughter, and then there's 3 other brothers. So this is a good family, and just like the rest of these families here. But we've got to do something. We've got to get real with engaging our young people, give them alternatives, and make sure that they and their families are as safe as possible. But Chief, again this morning, your team did an excellent job. They were phenomenal as usual. Jerry, he led the press conference. He did a phenomenal job. And the level of compassion that the staff has shown the family, I'm more than in debt to them, and let them know I wanted to say thank you to them. With that being said, Chief, we know law enforcement meets people in their worst situations. We're not our best when the police show up, right? But with that being said, you guys have done a phenomenal job of working diligently, do all you can to keep our community safe. So we want to definitely thank you on that. But council, we got a responsibility.
The time is now.
Yeah, and it's now. The time is now. So it's full-fledged, let's figure out what we can do to save lives within our community. Again, thank you, Chief. Is there any other business from City Council?
Mayor, I do just have one quick thing that I want to put before the council. And this is something I talked to some members of council a lot, the previous council, and I didn't get as much interest, but anyway, I'll just read what I wrote and we'll just go on. In light of the recent Supreme Court ruling on employment discrimination, and I've received recently some anecdotal stories about local discrimination in our rental markets. People of, we'll just say discrimination, people not being able to live where they want to live because of who they are. I would like to, I'm going to make a motion again to direct our city attorney, if the council approves it, to draft a non-discrimination ordinance for the city of Statesboro. If this city is going to soar and move forward in these challenging times, it is imperative that council not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. Putting a non-discrimination ordinance in place will put the city in a leadership position across the state, as only a handful of cities, and when I say handful, that many, currently have a non-discrimination ordinance. If we approve this directive to the city attorney, I'd be happy to forward the ordinances that I've received from the city of Doraville and the city of Clarkston, both of which have passed very similar ordinances, and I believe the city of Atlanta has done it as well. So I'm going to make a motion to direct the city attorney to draft a non-discrimination ordinance for the city of Statesboro.
All right, and if I want to piggyback a little bit off of Councilman Boyd, and what he's referencing is the Supreme Court decision in regards to the LGBTQ community. And I think that is the right thing for this council to do. If we're going to be an inclusive city, if we're going to recognize the genius of God in everyone that's around us, I think that is the right thing to do. So I concur with Councilman Boyd on that. Is there a second to his motion?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Let it show that that motion did not pass.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I got that one.
I got it. Thank
You
Councilman
got
Boyd.
4 seconds, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Councilman Boyd, for that. Anything else from, city council?
Yes, I would just like to, just render my gratitude to, Chief Broadhead and his staff this weekend. We had a youth rally, and the police officers showed up in numbers, and they were very, very kind and cordial, and made the community and the, protesters there, we were united. Unity in the community was the theme. He made them feel very, very, very safe. And like they were a part of the community. And that's what I want to see more of. If we're going to heal our nation, and if we're going to heal Statesboro and just bridge this gap, we need more demonstrations like that that happen. And that's what we're not getting a lot of, is what he and his team presented this past weekend. Officer Sims was the one that was, speaking directly with me, and I just want to render my gratitude for great work. And like I said, we want to heal this. Is it Sergeant? I didn't know if it was Sergeant or officer. Yeah. So I said the police today is on our side.
They got a couple of those, John.
Yeah, I know that, but he's a three-striper.
Yeah, well, Sergeant, sorry about that, but he was very cordial and kind, and I just want to, say thank you. And like I said, if we want to heal, we need more demonstrations like they presented this past weekend.
Yeah. And I think this is a good segue, Councilwoman Barr.
Yeah, I have an announcement I wanted to share about bridging the gap, but before that, Mr. Mayor, we had talked about asking the chief to share with us how compliant we are with the regulations about policing.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to do that first, or let me do that after you?
Okay, I just want to be sure we don't run out of time. I know we're running late, but I want
we running late?
I want
Running late, but I don't know there's a run out time.
Go ahead, Councilwoman
Okay,
Barr.
so.
You haven't been here till 10:30 yet?
So, I tagged all of the council members and the mayor and the ones that I'm Facebook friends with, but I just wanted to call attention to the fact that the beloved community group of Bullock County, which was formed in 2015, to begin efforts to bridge gaps between local African-American community and law enforcement. It started back in 2015, specifically around that cause, and we've been ongoing, and we sponsor different events on different topics. And so there's going to be an event next Monday. It's an online Zoom event because of COVID, but we're sponsoring a local community conversation on topics of race and racial justice here in Bullock County. I'm very pleased that Chief Broadhead is going to be one of the participants. First Lady Adrienne McCollar is going to be the moderator. We're going to have a total of 9 people on screen. So I hope folks will, the first 100 can attend the Zoom meeting live. And after that, folks will just have to see it recorded after the fact. So go to my Facebook page and sign up, get a spot.
Okay, good deal. And so I kind of want to follow back up. Chief, what Councilwoman Barr is referencing, the 8 can't wait. I know that I had asked in regards to it. If you want to give some insight from there. Okay.
Again, what?
Oh.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So at a recent protest or rally, it was brought up that the Campaign Zero's 8 Can't Wait guidelines were out there, and they wanted to know if we were in compliance or demanded that we get in compliance with those essentially. And so I just wanted to kind of give you guys an overview of our use of force policy and how it specifically relates to those 8 items recommended by Campaign Zero. A couple things I would like for you to know is that the overarching commentary in our use of force policy, which runs about 11 pages, is that our officers are instructed to use the minimum amount of force necessary to effect an arrest or overcome resistance. That's a standard much more strict than case law, and it's a standard much more strict than state law. So I want you to think about that wording, the minimum amount of force necessary. And if that is not the state law, nor is it case law. But I would defy you to find a more succinct way to say what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so that theme runs throughout that policy. So I'll just say that right off the top. There really are 3 ways that policy is made. One is the written policy. That's specifically what we're going to talk about today. But please understand that how you train as a law enforcement agency also affects your policy. If you are training one way and saying you do something different, then that can, reduce, or that can result in liability for you should you, have a common practice or teach a common practice that's not part of your written policy. So those need to be consistent, and ours are. Particularly when we talk about de-escalation, that is a very common theme over the last couple of years through our training program. Every really program that we do that has anything to do with force, there's a de-escalation component to it. We do employ a team of officers as a crisis negotiation team whose job it is to de-escalate barricaded subjects and those kind of things, and it trickles all the way down to the individual officer who's trained to de-escalate individual people at times of crisis in their own lives. The third way that we establish our policy or the way that we do business is through what we award and what we punish, right? So our disciplinary process fits very importantly into the process of making policy, if that makes sense. So what we're going to talk about today, so we can keep it sort of in a bucket, is that we're just going to go through our written policy as it relates to these 8 can't wait. We did not write this policy with Campaign Zero's language in mind. It was written as a best practices policy, so I'm going to try to make some of those connections. In some cases, the language is very clear. In other, I'm going to have to ask you to see the tone of the policy as it relates to the 8 can't wait and find that connection, and we'll kind of walk through that real quick. All right, so here are the 8 standards recommended by the 8 Can't Wait campaign. Ban chokeholds and strangleholds, require de-escalation, require warning before shooting, requiring the exhaustion of all alternatives before shooting, a duty to intervene, ban shooting and moving vehicles, require use of force continuum, and require comprehensive reporting of use of force. Any questions about those 8 before we move on? We'll go through each one.
Sure, I'm going to forward council so you have copies of the PowerPoint as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So you'll see on these slides, there's a little notation called LEOM and then some numbers. That's our Law Enforcement Operations Manual. So these are all quotes directly taken from policy to try to make those connections to help you see where we're at in our policy. So the first one from the 8 Can't Wait is to ban chokeholds and strangleholds. I will first say to you, I cannot believe that law enforcement agencies in this country still allow this. I thought that nationwide, this went out in about 1990. I attended the police academy in 1988, and they were not being taught at that time. My time as a military policeman, 4 years before that, they were teaching chokeholds. By 88, they had left, at least in the state of Colorado where I was working. So maybe that's slow to get around the country. I'm just shocked that that's not already policy. But anyway, you can see we have specific language that says the use of neck restraints as an empty hand control tactic is not permitted and is an unauthorized tactic unless deadly force is justified. Please understand that infused throughout this policy is we have to allow officers that when their life is in imminent danger, they have the right to defend themselves, whether that be with a brick or a shovel or any other weapon at hand, including a chokehold. But as a restraint device, we outlaw that. Number 2, the 8 Can't Wait standards to require de-escalation. Again, I can tell you that training as a part of policy, we're constantly talking about de-escalation, but you can see that we We address that with some specific language that says the direction and result of most encounters with subjects can be controlled by good communication skills, and again, that this requires good communication skills and patience. So again, if you'll think about that as a matter of policy, we're requiring our officers to be patient, which is something I think I struggle with as far as my day-to-day life, but we're requiring of our officers when they're interacting with people who are potentially in crisis or just having a bad day. Under number 3, require warning before shooting. The specific quote we have in our LEOM, verbal warnings prior to using deadly force is required when feasible. That comes directly out of a piece of case law that says that you should give a verbal warning if you can. And I think, again, we have to give the officers the leeway that if there's a person in a mass shooting who is gunning people down, a verbal warning is probably not appropriate at that point. And they need to take some kind of action. Or somebody who's exchanging gunfire with the police already, we're not going to require them to make a statement. Number 4, require exhausting all alternatives before shooting. Again, how we say that is that in evaluating the necessity to use deadly force, 2 factors are relevant: the presence of an immediate danger to the officer or others, and the absence of safe alternatives to the use of deadly force. Again, I don't know any other way to say that and still allow the officers to defend themselves. 5, duty to intervene. I have to say it never occurred to me to have to write a policy that would tell a police officer to stop another police officer from hurting or killing somebody, and that's something we're definitely going to have to look at and see, because I think in the Minneapolis incident we see, somebody should have told somebody to stop, right? Yeah. And the fact that we haven't got that specific language is something we're going to review. But I think if you'll go through that, you'll see that we are telling our officers what their number 1 responsibilities are, and that's the preservation of life and community safety, that we ask them to act professionally in all matters, even if not clearly defined in the policy. And again, we talked about the minimum amount of force. You see the second quote there. It says officers acting within their official capacity may only use the reasonable amount of force necessary to effect lawful objectives. I think that's a looser standard than our other standard of minimum amount of force, but that was a statement required by state certification that had to be in your policy. So even though I find that less restrictive, we added that as a paragraph to pass certification without getting rid of our more stringent standard. We do require any department member who observes another officer using excessive force to report that immediately to the professional standard sergeant, to not go through the chain of command, but immediately go to our internal affairs sergeant and make that report. That to me is an important safeguard to make sure that officers are that they know that they're mandated to report if they see excessive force. So if you think of the standard as the minimum amount of force necessary, anything beyond the minimum necessary would by definition be excessive and is required to be reported. 6, ban shooting at moving vehicles. Again, this is something that has for some reason been slow to catch on in law enforcement. We've been teaching for 3 decades that a bullet will not, the magic bullet fired perfectly at the charging vehicle, even if it immediately incapacitated the driver, does not solve the problem because the car is still moving towards you, right? So again, we have to ban the shooting at or from moving vehicles. We do that in policy, again, with a proviso, because you can imagine a scenario where you have a crowd event and you have somebody drive into the crowd in a car, back up, drive into the crowd again, back up. At some point, lethal force is going to be used to stop that person. But generally speaking, we don't allow our officers to shoot at moving vehicles. Aaron, did you have something?
No, when you were saying that, I was thinking about Charlottesville.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
7, the requirement of the use of force continuum. We do embed the use of force continuum throughout that policy. If you're not familiar with that, it basically is an escalation. It's really a training technique more than anything to teach. You can imagine, so the case law standard established by Graham versus Connor is that officers have to use an objectively reasonable amount of force. How do you teach a brand new police officer what objectively reasonable means, right? And so by using the continuum, it is a way to sort of teach that. But think about it starting at verbal skills and escalating through various levels of force up to and including deadly force. What we don't require and no force continuum requires is that officers have to hit each step along the way. So you don't have to be Dudley Do-Right and say, halt in the name of law, and then somehow try to do a wrist lock, and then a strike, and then pull out a baton, and then get to your gun if the guy's shooting at you the whole time, right? So the use of force continuum, there's also a corresponding levels of resistance that we define, and officers are allowed to overcome resistance, so typically they can use one level on the continuum above what the offender is using to either hurt them or escape. But again, it's more of a training tool than anything else. Number 8, which is require comprehensive reporting. We do anytime that an officer uses an intermediate weapon or does anything that results in someone complaining of pain, they have to, even if like if we tackle somebody and they say how that hurt, that triggers a use of force report. Those go through a series of supervisory reviews, up to and including me. Anybody along the way can trigger that to result in an internal affairs investigation, or can recommend to me. I'm ultimately the one that makes that decision. But we do that very regularly when we have those use of force reports. Everybody touches it along the way. If anybody has concerns about it, we're going to stop and take a closer look at it. So here's the good news. The bad news is that in order to affect law and order, sometimes you have to use force against people. There are some people who just cannot comply. But here's where we're at in our community. In 2019, we made over 1,900 arrests. We used force, like I defined, an intermediate weapon, which has almost exclusively been the taser, or the person complained of pain. They had some visible injury, like a cut lip. 16 of those subjects required us to use a level of force out of over 1,900 arrests. That's less than 1% of those arrests. What tells me is that there is, on the part of the offender, the person being arrested, that they believe in police legitimacy, if you can believe that. Because if I was about to be arrested and I knew that I was going to get beat up on the way to the jail, I'm not going to submit to arrest, right? But if I know that I'm going to be treated fairly, then it's much more common for people to actually just surrender and comply with arrest. I also think this speaks incredibly well to the professionalism of our officers on an individual basis to de-escalate people. Most of the people we take into custody tend to be under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or adrenaline, and the fact that we're using force so little tells me that the officers are doing a fantastic job of convincing people to be arrested. And you can see that trend was a year ago as well, 2018, over 1,900 arrests, and again, used force in less than 1% of those situations. Okay? You guys may recall that about February, I gave you a copy of our annual report. In there is a use of force analysis that we do each year, and so it's available at that website, www.statesboropd.com, but you also probably have a copy still, and I would encourage you to read that, because it goes through, step by step how we evaluate those uses of force, what days of the week did they happen, did they occur more or less at different times of the day or night, et cetera, et cetera. And we do that every year just to try to find out, is our training working? Because the other thing we have to balance is officer injuries. It's one thing to say that we're only using force against 16 people, but if we have 25 officers hurt, then our policy's not working, and we're going to have to do something different. But we had no officer injuries during the time of arrests last year. So that tells me our policy is working, it tells me our training is working, and our community is working with us. Any questions at all?
No, but I will say, we have a fantastic PD.
Yeah.
We have great PD officers, and I commend them.
I do have a question, Chief.
Sure.
What do you, in connecting to the 8 Can't Wait, it's the City of Statesboro Police Department, are we 50% there, 60%, 70%, 80%, 100%? Comparatively speaking, what percentage would you say we're there?
I think we're 100% compliance with that. Not word for word language, but I think in intent and purpose, I think we're there.
Okay.
I'm already seeing a national discussion that 8 Can't Wait is not sufficient, that there needs to be tighter police reforms, and so I say stand by for that. But the one thing that I would say that we need to do more directly is this duty to intervene language, to inject a sentence, if nothing else, that says if an officer observes another officer using excessive force, they have a duty to stop that excessive force and then report it. And I think that's a pretty simple way that would put us, I think, at 100% compliance with the guidelines.
Okay.
I have questions, Mayor. Chief, what can I tell somebody who says, okay, so my cousin had a complaint and we never heard anything else about it? I know there's some transparency, but what can I tell people? Where do they go to look to find out?
Sure, every person who has anything, I have a policy that anybody who calls a PD and wants to talk to me gets to talk to me. If they want to stop in and visit with me, unless I'm already tangled up with somebody else, and that's frankly what I spend most of my time doing, is talking to people that just either come in and say, hey, I need to have a word. And so sometimes those are around complaints. I will tell you that those body cameras that our officers wear protect our officers more than anything else. Now, I have fired a couple of officers because of bad behavior caught on those videos, so we can't say that doesn't happen, or that our people are perfect in every situation. But almost exclusively, when somebody comes in and complains, we can watch the video, and those things did not happen. The allegations against the officers frankly didn't happen. And I'll tell those folks, let's sit down and watch the video together. And they'll say, well, why? Well, because we have a video of the incident, they'll say, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore, right? Oftentimes, we get complaints that are third-party complaints. We had one just a couple of weeks ago where somebody says, hey, my daughter was taken out of her car at gunpoint and that was uncalled for. Okay. Well, the video, that never happened. Nothing like that happened. I mean, the contact was jovial, it was cordial between the driver and the officer. And so then I called the complainant back and said, hey, we have video of that, he never called me back. I called the daughter, reached out to her, and she never called me back. So sometimes when you hear stories or complaints about things going on, we video almost every single thing that we do. And that video is available to watch. So it's protecting our officers more than anything else.
So people can call you specifically?
They can.
But what is the process? Is there a website? Is there paperwork? Is there?
We don't publish that stuff. Every officer, like, if the sergeant takes a complaint, if somebody comes in and says, hey, this officer's rude to me, the sergeant will try to resolve that with them if they can. They have to fill out a form and then they forward it through our computer system so that we can track that. So if somebody calls and says, hey, I made a complaint to Sergeant Sims, I want to know what happened to it, we should be able to look that up and say, well, he says that he talked to the officer and you know, the officer says he's sorry or he's going to do it. They disciplined him or they sent him for some retraining to curb, you know, whatever thing was going on. And so we should be able to report that. We don't publish it except for once a year in the annual report. We kind of recap the year, but we don't publish individual complaints in any format that would be accessible other than they can contact me directly.
Okay. And the body cams, when do they turn them on? Are they always on or what day?
No, that we have a policy specifically dictates when it has to be on, but typically anytime they're in contact with somebody. So, you know, you can imagine, there are unthought of issues with body cameras, like when officers go to the bathroom, right? And then we'll get requests, please delete this video because I forgot to turn it off. Nobody reviews those videos, by the way. So we do have a policy that dictates when they have to be on.
But Chief, along those lines with the video, the officers actually don't have the ability to mess with the actual, the data or the file itself. When they come in and they turn in their stuff, or when they end their shift, that thing is automatically uploaded, is it not? And they have no control over that. So it's not like they can just go and delete it.
They would have the ability to delete a video, but we would have a record of that happening.
Right.
Before it downloads, because all that is cataloged, right? So, but it automatically downloads at the station, and the only thing that they can do to touch that is they can put a label on it. They can put a case number with it, or they can put, this was a training environment. They have the ability to add a piece of data to that, but they can't change the video at all. In fact, we don't have the ability to change the video after it's downloaded. I suppose that the manufacturer at some point would have some control over that, but we don't even have that ability inside.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.
And this is, you know, and I know that we've had this discussion before, but we wanted to get this in public. Councilmember Barr had reached out, so we wanted to make sure that when we go out and we're engaging, and I want to say again, I can't be proud of this council and how they really stepped up in engaging these young people that's showed up on our courthouse lawn and at our parks, heard over what's happened. And I think what's been the difference between us and other communities is that we went there and we were there with them, whereas in other communities, their leadership did not show up and things went awry. I do kind of want to follow back up, and this is why I firmly believe in putting experts around you. The chair of our One Borough Commission just reached out to me and stated that One Borough is working on completing the draft of an equity package and non-discrimination ordinance, and they will get that to us by the end of the month. So as soon as they get it to us, we'll make sure that staff gets this out to council for their review. And a part of that is a non-discrimination clause in regards to housing. So this is why this is the whole purpose of creating those commissions, is because you put experts in their field into a role that they can help us be ahead of the curve. So I definitely want to thank them for the work that they're doing. And as soon as that's presented, we'll get that out for council review. And then between us, we can all figure out how do we adapt and things of that nature. You know, what's good for Statesboro. So I did want to share that with you guys as well. With that being said, we'll move down to agenda item 28. And don't do this to us again, Stan. Agenda item 28.
Can I have one more comment? If you haven't participated, I had the pleasure of participating in the Citizens Police Academy last fall. And let me tell you, if you haven't done that yet, you have no idea what these guys and ladies go through on a daily basis. I'm talking dead bodies in closets for 3 months. I'm talking just unbelievably crazy stuff you would not, and how quickly something can turn.
Yeah.
So I know over the past couple of years there's been maybe a little bit less focus on that, but that was an amazing class I had. And I think it starts, Chief, sometime in August, does it not, or early September, somewhere in that neighborhood?
For the coronavirus thing.
Trying to figure it out, but generally it's been in the fall, so I don't just encourage my fellow council members to participate, but I encourage the public to sign up for that, and so when that comes out, and at one point they were doing it a couple of times a year. There were that many people involved, and I think we really need to get that demand up again, and if people are really interested in finding out what the police do on a daily basis, they walk you through everything, detective, patrol, force, SWAT, the whole 9 yards. So it was a great program, and I encourage any of y'all or any of the citizens of the city to participate. It was a great program.
Good deal. Thank you. City manager, you have anything? No. But we got to take care of the business.
I do want to just say, one, I want to appreciate our staff, Cindy, Wes, and Jason, and all department heads for putting together a good budget. So I do want to publicly state that.
Yeah.
And to be able to balance the budget with no tax increases is really commendable. I also want to just say to Chief, and I think y'all are recognizing and giving him plenty of accolades, but I also want to just say, from recognizing the situation and the protests and all, it's very commendable for Chief, because the first protest on that Sunday, I went down and I was there, and young man had an accident, and so whenever I got a chance to get close to Chief, I'm like, where are the police? And he said, I told him not to come. But he was there.
Yes.
And he has personally taken on this responsibility, and so I want to appreciate him before y'all.
Yes.
To know that he has internalized this, and it really needs to get away a little bit.
Yeah.
To have some time just to come down, because he wears it on his heart.
Yes.
But hopefully the approach that he uses is infectious enough that it permeates throughout the entire police department.
Exactly.
Because his approach is the right approach.
That's right.
To dealing with citizens and being willing to sit down and talk to them. So I want to say that to you. And then the last thing I just want to say, we are continuing to monitor people as they come in and out of the building. And honestly, Mayor and Council, we're supposed to do that through the 26th. But when we look at our numbers, I think slower is better than just opening it wide open, because our employees have done a great job through all of this. But we still need to be careful, and we still need to be mindful that when we're moving about, and when people are coming into the building, we still have to socially distance, wear masks, and all of that stuff.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Penn. All right. Are there any public comments? Seeing that there are none, is there a need for an executive session? All right. Seeing that.
Can I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
Part 1, subset A. I'm just kidding.
All right, consideration of motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All right, all those in favor?